This is the Unregistered podcast, and I'm Thaddeus Russell. This is a show about ideas, people, and behaviors that are considered inappropriate, out of bounds, or beyond the pale. The things you're not supposed to talk about if you're a school teacher, a college professor, a businessman, a politician, a parent, a neighbor, or even a podcast host. These are the things you're not supposed to say or even think if you're a good liberal, a good conservative, or a good citizen. Each week, I'll interview a person who has something bad to say. They might be a journalist or a professor. They might be a porn star or a drug dealer. They might just be an ordinary person with an ordinary job who doesn't care about the rules of polite society. I'm not interested in breaking the rules just to be a troublemaker. I'm interested in people who break the rules of conventional thought and to expand the scope of what is possible to say in our society. I'm interested in people who make me think. I want to thank everyone who has listened to the show. The response so far has been far bigger than I expected, and it really means a lot to me. If you're one of the people who likes the show, I need your help to keep it going. You can go to thaddeusrussell.com/support, where you can make a financial contribution of as much as you want. You can also support the show by visiting thaddeusrussell.com/Amazon whenever you want to make a purchase on Amazon. This week's guest not only says things you're not supposed to say, he asks questions you're not supposed to ask. Big, important questions that are never addressed in a college classroom. Even if you violently disagree with the way he asks those questions, and many people literally do, Gavin McInnes is starting conversations I think we should all be having. Gavin is a writer, creative director, actor, and comedian, and he's the co-founder of Vice Media. He's also the host of the Gavin McInnes Show at Compound Media. I interviewed him in his favorite bar in Midtown Manhattan. So I've been following you for a long time, Gavin.
I heard a rustle in the bushes outside my master bedroom window last night.
It was me, yeah. I've been following you for a long time because I've been very intrigued by you. And
were you the guy on the train?
No, only the bushes. I only do bushes. Yeah.
Wow. Well, here we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I'm gay. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, I've always assumed a stalker would give the most enthusiastic fellatio.
Right. I just want to make sure that was on the table before.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be good.
So you can feel free.
Clearly a swallower.
Yeah. All right. How did you? Oh, yeah.
Stalker.
Yeah. No, I have been following you for a long time. Been watching you, and Gavin's getting his maker's mark right now.
From a very attractive Latina.
That was sexist.
I think likes me more than a friend.
Sexist and possibly ethnicist. Yeah, no, I actually, when I tell people this, they don't believe me. It's true. When your podcast or your talk show, whatever it was free speech, I watched every single episode. And they're like, why? And because he's a clown, because he doesn't have anything interesting to say. And I beg to differ. Now, you and I have...
This is really strange compliments I'm getting here.
Yeah, no.
Well, I actually listen to what you have to say, even though everyone says that's ridiculous.
Yeah, well...
Thank you very much, I guess.
Well, you get that, right?
No, I'm a much sought-after intellectual.
I'm saying certain people, yeah. So anyway, I did, and I heard a lot that was actually interesting, very interesting to me. And I could see that you were... What was fascinating to me was that I could see that you were working out ideas. You're really interested in ideas. I think there are other people who are called provocateurs who aren't. They're really interested in being... Because that's like almost your title, like on Wikipedia, I think, is like provocateur, right?
Yeah.
And I've been called a provocateur, by the way, and I hate that. It pisses me off because it suggests that you don't have any ideas. You're just doing this just to provoke.
Yeah, I hate the term polarizing, too. I wish you weren't so polarizing. And you go, don't get mad at the magnet because everyone else is repelled.
So
like I was at Fox News once, and this black engineer came up to me, and he said, I'm going to be working on your show. I was guest hosting Red Eye. And he goes, I'm going to be working on your show. Oh, cool. Yeah, I remember you. I just want you to know that I don't agree with a lot of what you say, but I respect the fact that you speak your mind. And I said to him, I don't like that. Like, what do you disagree with? I don't have views. I think most rational, sane people are like scientists, and they have a hypothesis based on the data. But if you have new data, I'm happy to throw that view in the garbage. It's not a religion to me. I have religion. That's over there. But I think like Israel should build more wall and not go back to 1970 borders or whatever the old argument was. I used to think they should go back to those borders, but I got in an argument about it with an Israeli, and he explained it to me, and now I'm up to these borders. But I can go back again if you have more data.
Right. So, I mean, so that's like an articulated position on a political issue that you've thought through clearly. You would have to know some of the history, right? That's not a provocateur, especially since you've changed your mind, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like they used to think you needed light to have life. And that was taught in all science classes. That was a fact. And then they started discovering life in rocks. Now, all of those things are gone. Did you think those scientists went, no, there's no life in rocks?
Yep.
They went, oh, we have to reevaluate now. Apparently you can't have life without light.
Science is always turning over what is true. It's always changing what is true.
Right.
I'll drop a book on you. Thomas Kuhn, The Structures of Scientific Revolutions, written in the 1960s, basically argued this. And all he did was he just looked at the history of science and he showed, first they thought the sun revolved around the earth, and then they thought the earth revolved around the sun, and first they thought the earth, for a while they thought the earth was a perfect circle, and then they thought it was oblong. But it's always being reformed.
And getting better.
Whatever. It's just changing all the time, which we don't have to go down that road. But I know you heard me talk about postmodernism and like how I don't really believe in truth on Rogan. And that's, to me, the fundamental argument is that there's never been anything that's been established as truth forever. There's nothing eternal.
Right, and that's why I don't agree with you saying we disagree. I don't agree with that we disagree. One has more facts. There was one time, David Cross and I did an 8-ball. And we talked for maybe 15 hours about this. And it was free school lunches, which I think are stupid. It's not the state's job to feed your kids. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, 80 cents. There's water at the school. Bums can get $10 for vodka. You're getting your kid a lunch. Sorry. And he disagreed. And we hashed it out. And each of us had all the facts. I think this program in New York is $7 million in debt, and it doesn't work. And, even with Michelle's free lunch program, they end up throwing it all out because it's gross. But anyway, we had all of the data, the exact same data, and we had totally different views after the end of the 8-ball at 4 a.m. And that's the only time I think in my life where both guys had the same amount of data and still disagreed.
Yeah.
Every other time, of the other million times, it's been one guy not knowing as much as the other guy.
Wait, so you think that the more data you have, the closer to truth you are?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Just like science.
So then, like, the phone book would be the most truthful book.
It is, as far as a compendium of names in the area and what their phone numbers are, yes.
Right. But
it's definitely the most... I would rely... If I was going to have a debate with a telephone book and the subject was people in the area and their phone numbers, I think you should err on the book side. It's going to know more than me on that particular subject.
But to make it meaningful, right, you have to interpret it, don't you? You have to sort of... There has to be a mind that makes the data
I've interpreted there's a lot of Wongs in Chinatown.
Yes, I've heard you've done that. All right, so back to the thing about being a provocateur. Do you reject that? Does that piss you off at all? Are you a provocateur? Is that...
I'd be dishonest if I didn't recognize that some of the ways I phrase things are incendiary. But I think that's my job. Now, what I resent about that term is that you're just saying shit to freak people out.
Right.
We can swear on this, right?
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, so you're just going up and being like, Jews are lizard people. Or, some crazy theory that isn't true. Oh, we got to feed all the niggers to dogs and then kill the dogs so they never come back. You clearly don't believe that. You're just trying to freak people out.
Right.
But I would say things that I truly believe, like there's no limits to free speech, and then use a hyperbolic example, like you're allowed to write sexual poems about babies. You're taking a very crazy example to make a point to get people listening. And I think stand-up comedians, I'm jealous of them in that they can just say shit and they're not pilloried for it. But they're not lying.
Changing. But yeah,
that's true. Sorry. But they're not lying. Like when Louis C.K. gets up there and he advocates for divorce, he's not playing a character. It's not like Andrew Dice Clay. He's saying what he really believes. Now, he's saying it in a hyperbolic way and he uses humor and stuff. And he's not seen as a provocateur. Here's an example. I wrote an article at this kids site called Thought Catalog where I said short hair is rape. And my argument was, if your chick has short hair, you're making out with her, right? She's pretty. But when you turn her over for doggy, you look down and there's a 10-year-old boy impaled on your dick. And you go, I didn't want to fuck a boy. You just raped me. Like if you switched yourself out and put a boy there, that's rape, right? Now, I clearly don't want women with short hair to go to jail for 15 years. Prison, sorry. So I recognize that it's not totally literal. But the subtext was that this definition of rape is ridiculous. And I brought in my disdain for women with short hair. That look as a way to play with that. It's called counterintuitive thinking. It's called being intellectually curious or having the language at your disposal. Like when Rush V said, if women weren't able to charge rape for someone they invited into their home, there would be a lot more discretion about what kind of guys you brought home. Mm-hmm. That is an intellectual game that's very stimulating, and it brings up all kinds of other points about what women should and shouldn't do, and do women deserve to be raped? Obviously not, but they should not walk through Harlem in the nude at 5 a.m. And Rush V's hypothetical scenario, again, these are always said without people who have power.
Mm-hmm,
This isn't a despot suggesting
that's
this.
A very important point.
Idi Amin didn't say this.
That's a very important point. Right. No institutional power at all.
That became he was trying to legalize rape and was going city to city on a legalized rape tour, which is just absolutely insane. So he's not a provocateur. He's a guy doing what he's supposed to do, which is come up with interesting ways of looking at the world. He doesn't want to legalize rape, obviously.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, one of the things I loved about that your work that I've seen, and your interviews, and is that even when I disagree with you, sorry, I said that, but what you're doing is raising questions that are never raised or rarely raised.
Yes.
You're raising really important questions, and you will answer them in ways sometimes that we don't like or whatever, but that's what was attractive to me about you. And I see
my body?
No, it's okay. You could do.
I could build up
a little bit of work,
a little more.
I'm not going to say where, but
my guns could have a little more beef.
Yeah,
very true.
Especially if you're gonna do the whole masculine thing.
Yes, that's an apt criticism.
I think it's for your brand only.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, abs are good for the brand. So,
well, we live in a culture now.
Yeah,
where there's a war on curiosity. It's a very incurious time, and posing questions are now seen as affirmative statements and therefore must be punished. Like, I always use the example of Larry Summers, president of Harvard, 2005. He said, is it possible women don't have a predilection for STEM? Maybe that's why they don't take chemistry? Question mark. Woman has a seizure, and she has to stumble out of the room because she's blacking out. He's fired. Steven Pinker says, look, this isn't a madrasa. If you have a modicum of rigor, you can present an argument. It's within the pale of legitimate discourse. But no, it's not considered legitimate discourse to ask a question. Or another example I really like is Cliven Bundy, redneck rancher. Yep. He fought the government and won because he was armed. There's a whole other moral there. No pepper spraying. He didn't get pepper sprayed. He was armed. But he's walking, he's talking to journalists all day. This guy's a farmer. He's a rancher. It's not what he does.
Right.
So over the course of 37 hours of babbling, you're going to step out of the legally accepted thoughts.
Right.
And he saw some black woman on a porch with like 4 kids with no shoes, and he knew the husband was in jail. And she's probably had 10 abortions. And he said, sometimes I wonder, would these people would they be better off as slaves?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're wrong. But that's not an affirmative statement. But if it was, it's wrong and nothing worse than slavery. But it's within the pale of legitimate discourse. You're allowed to be curious. He said, I wonder. So you're not allowed to wonder. So he was pilloried.
Exactly.
The right dropped him like a hot potato. Sean Hannity said, we apologize for ever having him on the show. He was an instant pariah.
Right. Yeah, so I'm going to out Gavin you on this. So when he said that, my thought was... actually, because I actually have written about slavery, and that's actually an interesting thing to study, because slavery, like everything, is more complicated than everyone believes.
Right.
Okay? That is not an endorsement of slavery, but it is a statement that any historian of slavery will tell you is true, that it was tremendously complicated. It depended on where you were as a slave, when you were as a slave, and that there's all sorts of debates among historians about how much power slaves had, how much freedom they actually had. It's not simple at all, and it's not just a moral play where it's good and evil. So
there's a great book about this called Run, Kipling Run. I'll look it up while we're talking, but it was a guy who analyzed slavery, and he was discovering things like you couldn't really whip the crap out of a slave.
Exactly.
He's got brothers. She's got brothers there. They've got siblings. They've got relatives on the farm. They're wielding scythes all day. What is it called again? A scythe?
Yeah, scythe.
Is it? You pronounce the TH?
Yeah, I think so. Scythe.
They're wielding scythes all day. You didn't really. It wasn't conducive to the machine to be constantly messing with them.
So I'll let you know. So historians until about the 1980s.
Roll Jordan roll.
There you go.
Yeah.
Eugene Genovese.
Yeah,
that's the man. So he and many other historians of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that was the consensus, was that slaves had a whole bunch of power, not total power, obviously, and more importantly, your point, that masters used the whip very judiciously, very conservatively.
Careful.
Why?
Pull that sentence out of context.
Well, no.
Put that on a T-shirt.
They did. No, because why? Because the
slave owners wielded the whip judiciously.
They did, and that's what they were. Because what you were saying, slaves were the most valuable property they owned. So, they didn't whip their cows and horses all the time, all day long, because that would just stop the cow from working. They understood.
So black people are cows, and it's good people who whip judiciously.
I knew this was going to be a dangerous interview.
Great. I can't wait to print that on parchment.
Yeah.
Well, here's another thing that's totally invaluable. No, invaluable is good. Totally valueless. Sorry, that's me. I had burritos for lunch.
Christ.
Ooh. I go to Chipotle and I overdo it every single time.
I told you it's something. Yeah, the Mexicans don't like you. That's what's going on here.
Scottish people, we're used to just potatoes, and then you give us beans and jalapenos, and valueless. Nothing more valueless than a white slave. They sunburn in the fields. They literally become white trash. You throw them out. Black slaves would make jokes about white slaves because they were so completely useless. And I'm not talking about indentured servitude. I'm talking about field work.
Yeah.
White slaves sucked. They were cheap. Their lives were cheap.
That I don't know about, but I do know this. That we have many interviews with ex-slaves, and their own views of slavery and their lives as slaves vary tremendously, and many of them said that it was better than freedom. There you go. So
Yikes.
If Cliven, it's just true. The WPA conducted 2,500 interviews of ex-slaves in the 1930s, and a good chunk of them agreed basically with Cliven Bundy.
Maybe that shows how shitty freedom was.
But instead of just freaking out and saying, "Oh my God, we can't even think this,"
right.
Or I want to just investigate it. It doesn't mean we're taking a position.
That's what that Steven Pinker quote was.
Yeah,
he was saying, "This is what we're here for. It's an institution where you hash out ideas," and it's become the opposite. In fact, there is less intellectual freedom on college campuses today than anywhere else in the world.
No doubt about it.
Like at this bar tonight, I could sit down and say to the guy next to me, "I wonder if they weren't better off as slaves." And the guy would say, "Oh, come on. There's nothing worse than not being free." We would hash it out. There'd be no hard feelings. I've actually had many arguments downstairs at this bar about Trump.
Slaves?
And the guys one of the guys lost his temper, and he left because he realized he was losing his temper. You know. Now, a college campus,
not
if
allowed.
I brought up a tenth of that, well, look, I got pepper sprayed at NYU. They didn't even know what my talk was going to be. I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't have any plans.
Right.
I got people in DePaul University. I'm going there in 2 weeks. They're planning to fucking murder me.
But they were all experts on fascism, and they understood that you are a fascist.
Yeah. I'm a fascist. I want different segments of the economy to be ruled by oligarchies, individual monopolies.
Yeah.
So I want to have a head of electricity, a head of education, and appoint each of these czars to this various departments, as fascists do.
Yeah, they know nothing at all about fascism or its history or its politics. Nothing. Yeah, no. When that happened, oh boy. So yeah, your thing about this being the most, what'd you say, the most incurious moment or something in history?
Yes, it's the most incurious moment in America's history.
I agree.
And America was built on curiosity and arguing. Think of
I don't totally agree. I agree with you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was going to say, it's hard with you history guys because I can't bullshit. The post office, before America, it was just people writing letters back and forth to England, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then someone goes, why don't we have intercommunication of these sort of island states that don't talk to each other? Next thing you know, and they may have had a long-term plan for independence, but next thing you know, there's all these newspapers going back and forth to all these disparate states. And they're right-wing and left-wing, and there's a huge variety of political views.
Like in the UK.
Like in the UK.
Where they don't pretend there's such a thing as journalistic objectivity, right?
Are we talking about today? Because I think today the media
Even
class...
Today. Well,
oh, come on.
I mean, they still pretend here that there's objectivity in journalism. That's a thing that you can achieve.
Yeah.
Where in the UK, they don't have that tradition, right? So there would be the right-wing paper, the left-wing paper, the Labour paper, the Tory paper, the Socialist paper, the blah, 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 right?
Yeah, I think at UK today, there was like Canada in that the main ones are left-wing, like the BBC... which the state runs.
Right, but they pretend they're objective. Well, I mean, I don't know about Canada, but here, CNN, the New York Times.
Yeah, they really believe that.
They believe in it.
Yeah.
They really believe that not only is there such a thing as objective journalism, but that they are the ones who are closest to it. Right?
Yeah, it is strange.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is strange seeing them say that.
But you know what function that serves, right? It functions to silence dissent.
Right.
Because
we've already got it covered. We're CNN. We already have conservatives on our panel,
and they did have it. They did have it covered until about 20 years ago. I mean, that was it. So in my world, like in academia and sort of being an author, you didn't have a career as an author unless you got a good review in the New York Times. That was it. They were that powerful as a gatekeeper.
Yes.
That was it.
Yep.
And there were 4 TV networks, right, which all said the same thing. And then
you compare that to today, where my literary agent said if you were on the front page of the New York Times book review, you'd maybe sell 20 more.
I love it.
Than you didn't.
It's fantastic.
If you're on Alex Jones or Stefan Molyneux or Paul Joseph Watson or Joe Rogan
or BuzzFeed or
you're looking at thousands more copies.
That's right. Yeah.
Like one interview on Stefan's show, and you'll jump like 20 places on the Amazon bestsellers list.
No doubt about it.
Fox News, CNN. New York Times book review, you barely see a blip.
Yeah, so that's why I think you're only half right about this being the most incurious moment in American history, right? Because I think you're completely right about academia, although one could argue that it's always been incurious, that there's always been monopolies in academia because of tenure, right? So the conservatives controlled it for a while, and the left took over, and the left controls it now. And
the left's had it for a hell of a long time.
Yeah, about 50 years, but yeah, so... But I know for a fact, because that's where I lived, and in academia there is very little intellectual curiosity.
Yes, you're right. I should have specified. Well, people are inherently curious, so of course Americans are the exact same curious they've always been. But I think the mainstream infrastructure has never been
the old media is just and
there's this cultural war against it. Like I'd understand if the fuddy-duddy media called me a Nazi or whatever, fine, but there's this real sort of grassroots movement from the people to get someone fired, like Brendan Eich at Mozilla. He donates to an anti-gay marriage thing, and there's a groundswell from the people saying, fire this guy. And he has the same views on gay marriage that Obama and Hillary had when he did it, but he needs to not code software anymore, because he might come up with software that gays can't use.
Yeah, I mean, the internet is this big, powerful tool that can be used in any way, right? And so it's used in that way to shame and moralize and get people fired and all that stuff, right? Which is obviously incurious and moralistic. But I think one of the things I found out when I wrote Renegade History, actually, the New York Times ignored it. All the academic journals ignored it.
Yep.
All the old media ignored it. And I thought I was toast. I thought I was dead. And then that was right. That was 2010, and that was right. Like blogs were starting to fade away, but then all these other websites were starting to emerge, and people started to talk about it. On all these other mediums, and I developed this whole sort of fan base completely outside that. And here was the thing that was so fascinating to me. And I've mentioned this on another episode. I noticed that a lot of them either hadn't gone to college or hadn't finished college. Most importantly, they weren't of college. That culture, right, that you're trained into.
Yeah, that religion.
Yeah. I mean, that whole way of thinking, the way of speaking, that censorship, all of that. These guys, and mostly guys, weren't of that, but they were smart as shit, and they knew a hell of a lot. And I was like, and I was dumb at that point about this. I said to them, well, how do you know all this about American history, and how do you have these ideas and know about philosophy?
You didn't have a teacher tell you how to think.
You didn't go to college. And they would say, yeah, it's the internet, man. I was like, oh, yeah, right. You can get all that stuff now on the internet, on your own.
Well, I never thought of that too.
There's all
book
these
sales used to be a spike right after you launched, and then it would peter out
Right.
to one a week for the rest of your life, whatever,
Yeah.
one a month.
Yep.
But that's not the way it is anymore.
Right.
You build a momentum, and my last book, Death of Cool, has been selling the same amount for months and months and months, going up and going down,
Yeah.
but not plateauing the way that is a plateau. But you know what I mean? Like way more copies per month.
not spiking
Yeah, not spiking,
and
just-
not
and
right.
it's increased,
and
It's
not
actually-
cratering either.
It's
Yeah.
gone up, not
Yeah.
a lot, but it's gone up incrementally over time.
That's true for Renegade history too. Also, yeah, I see a pretty steady flow there. But so like Joe Rogan's a really good example, and I've said this before. I think I said it to him, in fact. He's a great example of this. Like I think he did like one semester of college, right? Clearly, the guy is not of that culture. He's just like baffled by the whole thing. But he knows a lot of stuff. I mean, whether you think he's wrong about things or his interests are silly or whatever, there's certain fields actually where he's damn near close to being an expert. Like he knows a lot about certain stuff, and it's all self-taught, and it's all the internet. If you ask him, he'll tell you. It's like I just fucking go on I go on the internet and research this stuff on my own, and then I go talk to people to double check it, and I bring in experts, and he's totally self-taught intellectual, super
Why go to
curious
school?
guy.
Why go to school anymore? I took English. We read Charles Dickens, and the teachers told us how to interpret
I
these,
know, man.
these fictional books from
That's what I'm
from
trying
the
to do.
Victorian times. Like
Yeah.
why listen to a teacher tell? I could have got the whole roster. I could have got the whole canon on Amazon. Read it on my own time. I don't need teachers to tell me how to take a book. And even why bother reading all those stupid, boring books
Yeah.
from the turn of the century?
I have to put my son in a public school, and it kills me because it's just a prison. There's no doubt about it, and there's nothing intellectual about it.
It's a Marxist brainwashing camp.
It's not even Marxist. It's just stupid. It's training them to be little good, citizens and workers and soldiers and yeah. So I mean, I think that the internet revolution has shown both that there's a lot of moralistic authoritarians out there who can use it
Yep.
for those purposes, but it's also shown there's a whole lot of very curious people who are intellectuals, really, right? It's just that intellectuals just being curious about ideas, being interested in ideas. That's all it means.
Yeah.
And are able to educate themselves now. You don't have to go through the gates of Harvard.
It's ironic that the worst thing about the internet, this mass shaming where you can
Yeah.
find out where someone works and then everyone gets together and bombards their employer, then you get fired, is also the best thing because you call someone a Nazi or a rapist or whatever, and then they can look up all the details and they go, no, that's not what happened at all.
Oh, right, yeah.
And when they make up big lies like cops are shooting blacks for sport and Mike Brown had his hands up and Trayvon was just a cute little boy going to get some Skittles, all that information is available to us. So we look it up and go, no, that's not what happened at all.
I think studies have shown that it's true that fake news. It's easier for fake news to arise with the internet, but it's also much easier to debunk these things because
Yes.
of the internet.
I think Wikipedia is a great example
So
of
you'll
that.
see
Wikipedia is more accurate than Encyclopedia Britannica.
I don't know. In some cases, yes, but I mean, so you'll see myths come and go much more quickly,
Right.
because of the internet.
Authority in numbers.
Because people are like they just seize on these things. You get millions of people all studying this thing at once. That's what's going on as we speak, right? There's millions of people right now as we speak studying something
Right.
that's obscure.
Well, maybe that's why this is the most conservative generation ever.
What do you mean by that?
I think with baby boomers, something like
baby
2% were of 18 to 25s were conservative. With Gen X, it crawled up to maybe 5%. With millennials and Gen Y, 18 to 25-year-olds, 15% are identifying as conservative.
Right, but sort of what does conservative mean then?
I
right?
think conservative to these kids means I don't like big government.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it means you may not smoke pot
So
or
it's
gays are going to hell.
It's a libertarian version of conservatism, you think?
Yes, it's just easier to say.
Yeah, I mean, and they're allegedly more, quote, tolerant about other races and genders and sexual preferences.
Well, it's
Although-
a difficult thing to quantify because the 15% social justice warrior anarchist lunatic is so shrill and loud, and they've got the pepper spray and the screaming and the throwing of the bricks.
Right. When I was in college in the 80s, we didn't really have those types, but we had a lot of campuses had the International Socialist Organization, the
Yes.
ISO, and there would be like 3 or 4 or maybe 7 on a campus, but you heard from them all the time. So it seemed like they kind of ran the show.
True.
But in my classes now, I hardly ever come across what you would call an SJW. I hardly ever come across anybody who does that stuff every once in a while. Now, as I said to you earlier today, actually, that doesn't mean everyone's wrong about what's going on campuses. They're more right than they know, which is that everyone, in a sense, everyone is censoring themselves all the time because they're afraid of those people. They're afraid of being called out. They're afraid of being shamed because racism, just the label, has more power than anything in my world, in academia. If you get called a racist by anyone at any time, it's likely to stick.
Dude, it's the same with advertising or corporate America. I mean, that's the scarlet letter. But it's a lot like Islam, what we're describing here. We have a select group of Wahhabi extremists dominating the entire religion, and everyone else living in fear of them. And the moral of the story here is a bully needs a punch in the nose. And that's why we've been getting, the Proud Boys have been getting violent. Because we've learned that all we have to do is fight them like 3 times, and they vanish. I mean, we had the big fight at NYU. We had the Battle of Berkeley that birthed Base Stickman. The second Berkeley, no one showed up. They went to destroy Trump's Hollywood Star last week. No one showed up. We went to Boston for a free speech rally. No one showed up. I think they may have already lost. It's that easy to beat back these terrorists. And as far as ISIS goes, all it takes is one mad dog to drop some mother of all bombs, and that's the end of them. I mean, when I was a kid, we had a problem with Nazi skinheads. It was actually the government's fault because they had tried to infiltrate a non-existent thing and created it by accident, and all of a sudden there was Nazis everywhere.
In Ontario?
Yep, funded by the government.
In the 80s?
Yep.
Huh.
And
funded by the government?
Yeah, there was like the Canadian Jewish Council, I think they were called. They had all this money to go and fight the Canadian Nazi scourge, which was like 7 old guys.
Right, of course.
So they infiltrate it. Now it's 14 people. And then they start this thing, I believe it's called the Heritage Foundation or something, Canadian Heritage Foundation. And then they start releasing pamphlets and generating, and next thing you know, kids are going, yeah, maybe I will be a Nazi. And so now every town has their giant, our guys had, I wrote about this in my book, but the 3 worst guys in my town in Ottawa, Canada, little town, was Joff, who would go down to the States to these survivalist camps and get guns, which is unthinkable in Canada. We don't know what a gun is up there.
Right.
Then there was Francois, who had a Klansman galloping into battle on his entire back. And then there was Wolf, who had a cane with a rapier in it. The handle was a fucking knife. Like, these were cartoon bad guys. And the origin of this mess was the government. Now, there was this punk gang in Toronto called Bunch of Fucking Goofs, BFG. And they lived in a squat, tons of pit bulls and bicycles. And they just said, we're going to go punch Nazis. Now, when they were punching Nazis, they're punching guys with swastika tattoos. They were Nazis.
Exactly, right.
And they went town to town in a few months, beat up everyone in each town. And we never heard from any Nazi skinheads ever again.
Yeah, I had the same thing going on in Berkeley in the 80s. We had a punk scene, and it was, everybody needed to go punch Nazis, needed to go find them first, right? And then even in college, when I was in Ohio, a lot of my friends, they were all anarchists, and that was what they lived for, was to go find some place where there was some white supremacist and go beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, but they would always beat the shit out of us. We called them boneheads. And we were middle-class kids who worked on our hair all day, and they were they had no dad, and they grew up in foster care, and half of them wouldn't even have boots.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about your punk rock career. So how old were you when you got into it?
14, 1984. I heard Billy Idol's White Wedding and had a heart attack. And then I discovered he was in a band before that called Generation X. And then they were a thing called punk. Then it was the Sex Pistols, and then it was Plastic Surgery Disasters, the Dead Kennedys. And then it was Crass, and then I was in. Hook, line, and sinker until the early 2000s when Fat Records came along. Sorry, Fat Mike, but they started talking about I'm white trash and bowling. And then the other offshoot was Krusty Punks, started in late 90s, early 2000s. They were like waking up in the dark and making donuts at home and home craft beer and listening to grindcore and Napalm Death. And I just thought, I don't like either of these. You guys listen to noise and you're all grumpy and you reek. And then the SoCal irony thing with the bowling shirts is also gross, and I hate the way they sing all those bands. They're anthemic singing like they're trying to be gorgeous. So then gangster rap came out, NWA, and I feel like there's a massive punk exodus where people just started listening to gangster rap because it was more rebellious than punk.
Were you part of that exodus?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean I was a wigger, and I was too old. I was like 22, but that's when
it's never too old to be a wigger.
But also, punk should stay in your formative years. It doesn't age well.
But
the mohawk with a bald spot, it has to
you're
start and stop.
But you're still kind of punk rock. You are punk rock. I mean, that's
I think those ideals. I'm an anarchist. I want minimum government. I think I could say I'm a feminist in that I respect the fact that women are sentient beings and they can create humans, and I don't think they're men, which is what feminism has become.
So, but why did you get turned on to punk rock, like that punk rock back then? Generation X. Why? What was it about that band, that sound, that attitude at that time when you were 14?
Nothing very profound. I was a little kid. I liked being rebellious. It was exciting.
There's something profound. You may not know what it is.
It was fashionable. I liked being separate from the herd. I mean, I was always an immigrant. Okay. Moving from England and Scotland to Ontario and then to Quebec.
So you're born in England, moved to Ontario when you were young?
5.
Okay. Immigrant.
And I had an accent and everything.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah, not for very long. But, my parents were Scottish, and we were always outcasts. You know, you don't get into sports when you're moving around a lot as a kid because you don't have, not only do you don't have a team, you don't have the sport. Scotland is soccer.
Right.
And moved to Canada, it's hockey. Anyway, I guess I always felt sort of like an outcast, and punk glorified that.
Yeah.
And said, you want to be an outcast.
Yeah. The politics of punk, though, I don't know. I mean, it's terrible. It's basically communist. I mean, in my view, right? Yeah, okay. I thought I was right about that. I thought I had heard you suggest that there's
crass
like a right
stands
wing.
up.
Yeah.
Left wing, right wing, you can stuff the lot. They go, they said that we were trash, but the name is crass, not clash. They can stuff their punk credentials. It's them that takes the cash. They won't change nothing with their fashionable talk, their RAR badge, the Rock Against Racism badge, and their process walk. Bands of white men standing in a park. Objecting to racism is like a candle in the dark. Black man has his problems, and he'll learn to deal with it. He doesn't need help from you white liberal shits. If you take a closer look to the way things really stand, you'll see that we're all just niggers to the rulers of this land.
Damn. I didn't know that. What's that song?
White Punks on Hope.
Damn. So they have that line about black people not needing your help.
Yes.
God.
White, and he goes, racism and... what does he say? Something about racism being a Marxist con.
Mm-hmm.
Dirty little labels to keep us all in line. And then the song ends with pogo on a Nazi, spit upon a Jew, left-wing violence, right-wing violence, all seems about the same. Bully boys out fighting, it's just the same old game. Boring fucking politics will get us all shot. Left-wing, right-wing, you can stuff the lot.
So you weren't identifying as left or right at that point?
No, I was an anarchist. I wanted to burn the government to the ground. I still want. I still want the White House to be burned to ashes. I want the Department of Education to vanish entirely, not be reformed.
Right.
I want the Department of Energy to be burned to the ground, not reformed.
Yeah, we'll get back to that because I think there's some interesting, I'm not going to say contradictions, but at least paradoxes there. But anyway, but how did your parents react to the punk rock thing?
Oh, they hate it. They're blue-collar Scots. And in Glasgow, you're either working on the docks or you're telling people what to do in the docks, right? And it's a matter of being identified. My dad struggled bloody hard to get out of the Gorbals, and he got scholarships, and his brothers are all dead from alcohol. But he made it out, and he learned engineering and physics, and he went to Glasgow University on a scholarship. And the idea of us going back, it's like when people in Manhattan, their blue-collar dad got them out of Brooklyn and got them into Manhattan, and they moved to Williamsburg. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Exactly what you know.
I busted my ass getting us into Manhattan.
Shithole.
And you're moving that shithole where we just came from.
So he was
tattoos meant you're on the docks. But Canada's brand new. So if you have B's and A's, B's, let's say B's, and you have purple hair, the teacher asks you how you got your hair like that. Like, Canada just started. It's like Estonia, post-libertarianism. It's like, what do you got?
So, so it sounds like a middle-class family, but with working-class roots? Your family was middle-class, but it had working-class roots.
Yeah, I grew up for want of nothing.
Right.
Although, I have to say, I know I'm not a Biafran, but growing up with cheap Scottish parents when you're middle class can be a brutal struggle because they're as cheap as people with no money.
Yeah.
So I got for my birthday, when everyone had the $6 million man, I had his fucking boss, Oscar Goldman.
Hang on.
Why is your phone so loud? That guy's the worst guy in the world.
I want to kill him.
I want to bite him.
Start with the.
I want to bite his cheek.
Totally. No,
like Silence of the Lambs.
Just stomp.
I want to
Just
drink his
stomping.
face blood. So I didn't get the $6 million man. By the way, the idea of having Star Wars figures, unfathomable. And my friends had the Millennium Falcon, and I used to cut out. They'd give me the cardboard box, the cardboard they came in, and I would cut out Han Solo and just have a little cardboard Han Solo. But yeah, Oscar Goldman, the boss. Now he had an exploding briefcase. Didn't even get that. So it's just a Jewish guy at a desk in a suit with a map of the world behind him. And his job, by the way, is $6 million comes up and he goes, hey, go on this awesome adventure finding this woman who's been kidnapped and kill all the terrorists. Bye, I'll be here on my fucking non-existent computer because they're not invented yet.
So frugality was big for your.
Oh my God. My dad is so cheap to this day. He just flew to Glasgow last week because my uncle's dying. And he took a connection through Halifax with an 11-hour layover. Probably to save $50. Then he goes to the bar. He goes, what are beers here? Well, they're what they are in all airports, sir. Incredibly expensive. And we have to bid on this contract to have a bar in an airport, you realize. So we charge $8. Oh, that's ridiculous. I'm only meant to pay $24. That's my budget. Ordained by himself. And so he goes, right, I've a plan. I'll spread out 4 beers. No, 3. 8 times 3 is 24. 3 beers. 4 hours per beer. So he would sip his beer and then walk the length of the airport and then come back and have another sip. Now, growing up under that kind of dictatorship is like being poor. I mean, I had a waterbed and a pool.
Oh, my God.
But I didn't have any cool toys.
So check this out. Russell, guess where that comes from?
The little dog that gets rats?
Yeah, no. It's a Scottish name. You should have known that. Yeah, and then they became Scots-Irish. Right? And then moved to Ontario.
Oh, wow.
My family are Scots-Irish Ontarians.
Now, there's some debate on whether it's Scots-Irish or Scotch-Irish.
Yeah.
And in Arthur Herman's book, How the Scots Invented the Modern World,
Right.
he errs on the side of Scotch-Irish.
Right. So whatever you call them, like,
Okay.
I don't care. I don't care at all.
I
But
thought you would be so excited about that
not
debate.
at all. No, it's really boring.
So that's done.
But thanks, though.
That tangent has been circumcised.
I do appreciate your effort.
Okay.
So
Poor little foreskin of an argument lying on the floor.
So some of the Scots-Irish or whatever they are moved into the upcountry in the South, in the American South, and those were the badasses. Like those were the dance. There's amazing like records of them being busted for dancing and fornicating and drinking whiskey and cavorting with the Indians and doing crazy shit.
Well, Thomas Sowell says they created black culture.
There you go.
Black, redneck, white liberal. Right?
Them. Those people. Okay. But then these other Scots-Irish, my people, and it sounds like your people too, a lot of them came to the north or to Canada, and they sucked hard. So my people they moved to Canada, Ontario, and then became Mormons and went down to the United States and became Missouri Mormons, which were the ones, they're Mormons except they don't do polygamy. So the fun part of Mormonism they took out. The only fun part of it they took out. So it's just that puritanical repression that you're
social justice warriors.
describing. Thank you. So my father, we'd never had he had always had a solid middle class job. Never rich, but always. We never had a dryer, a clothes dryer, because they wear out clothes. You can hang them up. So we had clotheslines.
No, Scots will never use a dryer.
We would. That's so
or
funny.
a washing machine.
Wow, that's really hardcore. He didn't go that far, but we'd be the only.
No, I mean, sorry, a dishwasher.
Oh yeah, he would. Yeah, yes. I think he would had his problems with dishwashers too.
Yeah.
So we were like the only house in our middle class neighborhoods that would have these clotheslines, right? Like Okies. Yeah.
In the winter, my mother would do that too, so that you'd take down a towel and it would be a piece of wood.
Yeah. So, and if you got sick, if you got a cold, oh no, we don't take that cold medicine. It just makes you feel better. It doesn't cure it.
Yes.
It just makes you. I love that. It just makes you feel better.
Yeah.
But
that's what they're going for.
But, and it sounds like you had the same contradiction. Dude drank like a fish and actually smoked weed and loved to fuck around. And had a waterbed too, by the way. There was a waterbed too.
Oh, really?
So
yeah.
it's
The thing
really
with the waterbed is, if it's something that's mandatory that you need, like a bed,
right?
The sky's the limit.
Oh, No, my
But
father.
if it's something you don't need, then you don't need it.
Yeah. He drove the same Datsun station wagon for 20 years.
Yes. I remember looking through the floor of the Toyota Corolla and seeing the ground
Because
zip
you don't
by
need
underneath. And
You
thinking,
don't need a new car.
if I put my foot down here,
works fine.
It's gone.
This gets you there. You don't need anything. And then clothes, like, we would wear the same clothes until we would call them floods or pants.
Yes.
Right? We call them flood. I don't know what they do call them now, but like there's pictures of my brother and me where like the bottom of our jeans are like 7 inches off the ground.
Right. Well, they physically can't enjoy luxury. Like I was taking my dad out for this $50 steak one night, and he's going, "This is absolutely magic. This is incredible." And then I go, "That's like $50." And he just goes,
Right.
He lets it fall out of his mouth because it turned to shit.
Yeah.
It was like a Greek myth where I put my magic spell in his mouth and made his steak into poo-poo.
Yeah.
And it fell out of his mouth. Or one time they were up. I have good shit now. I have good stuff. I have a nice house and houses, and my mom was in our living room, and we have the fireplace roaring, and she goes, "Ugh." And my dad goes, "You know, this sucks more heat out the room and through the bloody chimney. So you're actually taking heat out the house." And then my mother snaps. She goes, "It's an aesthetic indulgence." And I go, "Mom, life is an aesthetic indulgence."
Well, no, it's not supposed to be. See, this is the thing.
You take aesthetic indulgence out of life? What do you have? We live in a cinder block room with like gray coveralls?
My father's thing about expensive meals was you just enjoy it for a minute and then it goes away.
Yes.
There's nothing,
Like
never
sex
useful again.
and
That's what I said to
everything
him. I
else
said,
good?
"Dad, what about sex?" He had no answer.
That's ridiculous. Sex is a waste of your organs. You should come in a cup and whip it at our fucking fanny.
Yeah.
That's how it should go.
So then he became a socialist. Of course.
Yep. Oh,
Right?
yeah, they're all very socialist.
Makes sense.
They killed their own economy
well,
with
the
socialism.
puritanical thing, right? That's a great thing to be as a socialist.
Yes.
If you're puritanical, right? So it made, and my dad said this, like, and he loved like scientific rationality, right? He was a computer programmer, like when computers were the size of houses, right?
Right.
But he loved anything that was rational and scientific and made sense and was logical, right? Like, organizing society according to the ways in which you think it should be
Like
organized.
a computer motherboard.
Yeah, like we get to organize the whole fucking thing. He loved that. It's really appealing to him. Like it's just this big game, and you can put it all together like a puzzle or whatever. So that was my environment growing up. But like it's Berkeley in the 60s and 70s when he's doing this, right? Which is so you got these lefties who are socialists and puritanical and suck and are interested in politics and revolution and killing the bourgeoisie. And then you got the counterculture right across the bay in San Francisco. You've got the hippies in the 60s and 70s, and then the punk rock comes in the late 70s.
But aren't they
and
all
80s.
politically aligned?
No. There's a great movie called Berkeley in the 60s. It's a great documentary in which they show that there was a split. My parents' people, the new leftists, socialists, hated them because they weren't doing serious politics. The hippies, they were just getting high and being naked in Golden Gate Park. They looked down on them. That's a waste of life. That's not important, what they're doing. The gays, similarly, right? It's like, okay, well, they're fine. We're not going to oppress them actively. But what they're doing is not important, like sexual freedom. It's just insignificant.
You sound like the modern left describing blacks. Like they want their pets in their. They like them to look like Camille Foster. But when
Camille looks hip hop, but the way they want their blacks to sound like Camille is what you mean.
And they like his suits. They like his little.
Yeah, well, he's
pocket
gotten a little more.
squares.
He's more street now, but yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, though. Yeah,
They don't want their pants sagging, and they'd want them voting for gay marriage. Blacks are very Christian. They don't, and we saw that in California with was it Prop 8, where the blacks all voted against gay marriage, and the liberals, it was like their dog had peed on the carpet.
Do this to us?
Yeah, like I was so good to you.
Right,
I took you in
exactly.
from the shelter.
Exactly.
And you pissed homophobia all over the liberal carpet.
That's right.
And I think they kind of abandoned them after that. And I'm talking like 5 years ago.
They abandoned the blacks.
They abandoned the blacks in a sense.
That's never going to happen. They need their.
Obama was their ideal black.
Right.
I don't think there's one black person in America that can relate to Barack Obama.
There's not anyone. Who can
Even
relate to
like
him.
rich, like Camille Foster types, right?
yeah.
Rich, smart blacks. They have a cousin who's a crackhead, and they're looking after like this cousin whose mom vanished.
Yeah.
And there's like you'll go to any erudite, educated, upper middle class black guy's nice, beautiful mansion, and there's 2 cousins there that he's looking after because someone. That's not Barack. His relatives are professors, and there's one in Africa, and he doesn't have that.
Right.
So there's nothing remotely black about the guy.
He's the paragon of discipline. I've always said self-discipline, right? That's what he presents, and they just love that because it's a total repudiation of black history. It's a total repudiation of the black history that they're trying to hide.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
So assimilation, right, of blacks, which has been both a black middle class project and a white liberal project simultaneously, has always been to assimilate them into that basically Yankee, Puritan, New England culture, right? To make them into that totally pure, kind of like your dad and my dad in a way, except for the the booze and stuff. But that thing where you live to be rational, and you live to work, and you live for your family, and that's it.
It's almost like with Barack, the liberals are saying, see how awesome they can be when we put them in line, when we make them behave.
Exactly.
If only you would listen to me and help me make these things behave, they could be perfect little angels, little Stepford blacks.
No, they can be just like us.
Yes.
That's what it's about, right? It's actually phenomenally paternalistic. It's anti-black, essentially. I mean, if there's anything that's distinctive about black culture, right, it's anti-black culture, because what they're saying is what's better is to be assimilated into our culture, to be like us.
Yes. They're very racist, and they talk about white privilege. That whole notion is racist because it says Asians are better than everyone. If you say, look, whites are living in a privileged society, give me evidence. Well, they're all the rich ones are white. A lot of blacks are in jail. You guys are privileged. Okay, when I apply that paradigm to Lebanese or African immigrants or Asians, I see Asians dominating math and getting all the Fields medals for math. Did they cheat? No, actually, it was just as bad for them as it is for blacks. And you go, what? So they overcame racism, and they make more than, I think we're 16th as far as ethnic groups in America. And Asians,
in income?
Yes.
Yeah, or wealth, yeah.
Yeah, and Asians are at the
who's
top.
we?
Whites.
Whites,
And you go, so they overcame all that and they kicked ass? Well, they're superhuman then. They're gods. That's what your philosophy states, that Asians are gods.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, my whole thing about this is that it's the slave culture has been a mixed bag, right? So it's given us all these fantastic things and their descendants, right?
Like what?
Like punk rock, like rock and roll, like the origins of everything you like the rejection of Puritanism, like the idea that you can and should
The rejection of Puritanism came from Scots. That came from Glasgow University, the first place to separate church and state.
Oh, well.
I'll give you rock and roll, but that was the angry Irish guitar and
Partly.
the beat of the drum.
Indeed, partly, yes. But
Chuck Berry got Maybelline from country singers.
There's no question that it was...
In fact, blacks hated Chuck Berry because he was too white.
Yeah, some. But, I mean, okay, yes. There was Irish involvement in that.
Yes,
For
Irish
sure.
slaves.
I've written about it. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I agree with you. But there's no question that it is essentially a black music. It starts as a black music. That the rhythms are... We can trace it back to Africa, syncopation, all that stuff.
Sure. I'll give you 50% black.
That blue. Okay. Yeah, fine. I'll take it. But yeah, no, and it's the idea, like, you can dress up. You can spend money on clothes to ornament yourself, right? Against the Puritans.
The English are obsessed with fashion. When English people come to America on vacation, the men, the old wrinkled dads,
the dandies you're talking about.
No, a working class 70-year-old man will set aside a day to go to Macy's.
Yeah, guess what?
Look at the soccer hooligans, the casuals. The reason they like going to Italy was not just to fight, but to get some nice Lacoste.
Right. Guess what? The Puritans left England. That was the point. They came here and told us that we shouldn't ever dress up.
Which you're doing a great job in your Hanes V-neck,
thank you,
Ricky Gervais shirt.
I want you to know it's American Apparel, first of all.
Oh, sorry.
You invented hipsterdom. I thought you would appreciate that.
Yes. I don't think we could say blacks gave us being flashy.
They gave... Sure. I mean, that's black style. Always has been. They're the ones who... Like, we're talking about this pimp style and all that.
Yeah, but I don't wear a white fur coat and purple pants.
No, I know. But it's... Anyway, well, we don't have to go down...
I wear a three-piece suit. Thanks, blacks.
You should thank the blacks.
Hey, man, sorry to bother you. I couldn't thank you enough for this tie, my
Gavin,
briefcase.
More of that.
And my Burberry trench coat.
More of that and less of the fascism from now on,
Yeah,
okay?
okay.
Thanks. I appreciate that. All right. So,
But I will admit that in whites-only countries like Finland, you just go, what a bunch of fags. Like
wait a minute.
They wear those Pumas
But fags
that look like
dress up too.
ballet
Oh, I see.
slippers.
Yes,
you know what I
yes,
mean?
yes.
Have you seen those? The Puma,
sure.
it goes down the side. There's no real sole on them. They look like ballet shoes.
Yeah.
And then they have their skin-tight stress denim.
Yep.
And they have that Umbro soccer jersey that they zip up to the top, and then they'll have this Kajagoogoo hair with their bangs dyed blonde with like little streaks of brown and black in their face, and you go, fags wouldn't even dress like that.
Well, I have nothing to say anymore. Yeah.
It's like my buddy went to visit his dying Hungarian grandfather, and he was wearing, what we would wear back when hipster started. We had a fanny pack, fluorescent yellow neon shorts. He had on like purple chucks, and he had, well, I guess you would call this black wear, some shirt with a crazy print of like butts and penises, and a sideways Supreme baseball hat. And he goes, "Hey, Granddad," and his grandfather goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You are dressed worse than the worst nigger."
There you go. Here's my argument. Thank you. I win. So what is your position on fags?
I think they're disgusting, and I think they're going to hell. The Lord obviously doesn't want them to do that. That's why he made a penis and vagina.
Uh-huh.
And you
And-
can't get
and
pregnant
AIDS,
from
I
the
take it.
butt. And AIDS.
Yeah.
Actually, there is a good Darwinian argument for AIDS. I think it's conceivable that nature has a stopgap that says when you fuck for 37 hours, things go wrong. No, but I obviously don't give a shit who's gay.
Right.
But I have changed my mind on gay marriage. I was all for it before because I fell
Weren't you kind of pro-gay or something at some point? In
I'm
some
pro-gay,
way?
yeah.
I mean, but like, what does that mean, though? Like,
that you're born gay.
well, fine. But
And I
mean,
think it's absurd to want to change that. And that
but
doesn't
I mean,
sound
like
controversial.
gay culture. Like, what do you think of gay culture? If there is such a thing. Or like, are there gay cultures that you like or dislike? Or
I think it's annoying to talk gay. I think like blacks and Puerto Ricans have this thing where they can indulge themselves, and so like, yo, nigga, I was fucking, motherfuckers been not talking. Niggas gotta get straight up with niggas, and you go, you're not gonna talk like that when you're 70. You're doing a guy.
I don't know.
And, you talk to a 70-year-old fag, and he's not like, oh my God, I was freaking out, you guys. He's like, hello, I'm an old gay man.
So it's self-indulgent?
It's self-indulgent. And I think what happened with gays was they got told they suck for 18 years. You're weird, you're a loser. And you are weird,
Right.
sorry. But then at 18, they go, actually, I'm not weird. And instead of coming out of the closet and going, I'm not weird, they're like, I'm not weird, I'm fucking me, people. Like, I went to a coming out party once in San Francisco, and this guy at his party, he comes bursting through a paper barrier. And he goes, "Psh, I'm here, I'm queer, get used to it." We're in San Francisco. I'm like, dude, we're used to it.
How did you get into a coming out party? How did they let you
My
in?
wife's a fag hag. I don't know. I've always been around homos. I moved out of the house when I was 18. So I've been ensconced in homosexuality up until July. From
Ensconced?
88 till July. And it's funny moving to the burbs because you're just waiting for the gay angle.
Wait, you live in the burbs?
Yeah.
Oh.
I moved to the burbs in July.
From Williamsburg, right?
Yes.
Brooklyn.
Yes.
So how the fuck did that work? How did you live there? How did that?
I created
how could
it.
that be?
I created it.
What do you mean? Created what?
Williamsburg.
Oh, you created Williamsburg.
I created Williamsburg.
Okay, I think your Wikipedia page does say that.
It accurately describes an event
Tell
called...
tell us, founder of Williamsburg, how that happened.
So we brought Vice to New York City in '99. We had
Okay.
an eccentric billionaire investor who was broke. I think he was involved in insider trading, and I believe that it was a pyramid scheme or something. I don't want to implicate myself in a libel suit, but he was up to some shady business, and he had all this money. He brought us down, and he had a good quote. He said, "If you're big in Montreal, you're big in Canada. If you're big in New York, you're big in the world. So let's get out of here." Fine, done. He had a magazine, I forget what it was called, some internet magazine. And we all moved down, lived like kings for 2 years, hemorrhaging cash, didn't feel good. We'd always been very frugal. I was in charge of the purse strings for the most part, and I was Scottish. But once we got this money, it was just like I was making $80,000 a year, which I think the year before we were making like 30. So just pissing money away, buying like $100,000 studio to take a picture. They wanted to sell internet stuff. Anyway, I'm off the tangent, but the money just vanished overnight. We were completely broke. Now, we had an advertiser called 555 Soul, and they were like rave wear that became hip-hop wear. And they said, come stay in our warehouse in this really shitty part of town called Williamsburg. And it was the same as Greenpoint back then, and it was all just warehouses.
This is like when? 2000?
2001,
Okay.
2002.
Yeah.
And it was all warehouses, and it was a lot of drug addicts, because I think there's a lot of rehabs there. So the crackheads would go to rehab and then not show up and then just stay there.
Yeah.
So it was dilapidated factories run by artists, some gays, but like nothing else. Taxis wouldn't go there. There's no ATMs.
Right. I mean, I had friends who lived there then, and there was a little bit of a scene, but that kind of thing.
There was that one bar on Metropolitan that everyone went to.
Yep, I know what you mean.
It had a female name.
These are my anarchist friends from college lived there.
And then there was the Greenpoint Tavern. That was always there.
But there wasn't
like,
much. Yeah.
I remember my buddy Curtis was just talking to someone, and this Puerto Rican 8-year-old ran up with a golf club and smashed him in the head so hard he was knocked unconscious.
Right, that was my anarchist friend. He was walking down the street there one day, and a bunch of Puerto Rican kids just came up and just beat the shit out of him and took his wallet, and he said, guys, I'm on your side.
Yeah, that always works.
Yeah.
It's like that woman who went to Haiti to prove rape doesn't exist, and as she was getting raped, she said, I'm a Malcolm X scholar.
Jesus.
Meanwhile, that guy fucking doesn't even speak English. He's French.
Jesus Christ. So you're like 2001, you guys are broke, you're in Williamsburg.
Yeah, I liked it better, to be honest, because hemorrhaging cash it's like my dad with that steak. Like, it turns to shit in your mouth. And Shane and Sarouche busted their ass. I mean, we were hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And people always say, oh, you started out with a government grant, you made your money there. But if you don't like the way we started, how about when we started from nothing again? It's like America. They go, slavery built America. Well, the balance sheet was zero after the Civil War. Yeah. So there's not a lot of people driving around cotton cars after the Revolution. So I'm afraid we all started from scratch.
It was just print magazine then, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there was retail too, though. We'd started some stores. Yeah. They went under.
Okay. Wow. So you had no money. You were in debt.
And the worst part was
print magazine.
This guy was spending money like he goes, let's incorporate the logo globally. So the Vice logo in Sweden, every country in the world. So that bill was like $500,000.
Oh my God.
And you're not up against retailers or anything. You're up against international lawyers who are pretty good at litigation. So those poor bastards sat on the phone all day just saying, look, we owe you $100,000. We can give you $7,000 or zero. It's up to you. Or you can sue us and get 10 and spend 40 getting 10. It was that all day. And I was just able to keep doing my job, which was provide editorial content.
So now
I didn't have to deal with the debt collectors.
The content so I wasn't aware of Vice until well into the 2000s, and it seemed like whenever that was, it's like you guys. I don't know if you even were still there, but like the Vice was sort of transitioning into politics, starting to become interested in politics. Is that right? That it was sort of like mostly about like boy culture, skating, and drinking, and sex, and fun stuff, and then. Is that right? That it seemed like there was like a movement toward
I would
politics?
say early 2000s it was about just alternative pop culture.
And music.
Fashion, music, stuff, comedy, do's and don'ts. And then maybe around 2005, I was getting... 9/11 changed my life.
Okay.
I had read Death of the West that year.
Oh.
And all of a sudden I started caring about politics. So I would say it got more into... conservative, libertarian type stuff.
Okay, you moved there then.
2003, maybe.
Okay, but
I tried to keep it balanced. Like I had Janine Garofalo write an article called "I Hate Conservatives," but then I also had a fashion spread in 2003 called "The New Conservatives." That I had all these guys wearing American flags and stuff, including that guy with the turban. What's his name? Warris.
But what were your partners' politics at the time?
Sarouche was just music. He was just a record label. He had a ring that said jihad. His parents teach Muslim studies. He's a devout Muslim.
Really?
Yep. Allah got him off heroin. Really, he did. Allah appeared before him. And Shane was never really political.
He is now.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was always the sales guy.
Okay.
So when I left in 2008, he all of a sudden they both became these politicized guys. And I never saw them as political. I never heard them talk about it.
Right.
They never seemed that way. Shane always talked about money 24 hours a day.
Okay.
And it was just pedantic.
Uh-huh.
And he'd do coke and get drunk, and he'd talk in my ear such that his lips were touching my actual ear skin.
Uh-huh.
And he'd be like, "We are going to be so rich. We are going to..." And I was like, gotcha. But it's Friday night. Let's enjoy ourselves and talk about some other stuff, maybe. Sarush would just... I used to call him Eeyore with AIDS. He would just, like, watch movies at home.
So you were the first sort of big thing in Williamsburg.
Oh yeah, that's what we were starting this whole discussion with.
So
we started.
You rebuilt after 2000, after you cratered.
Yeah, and I think the do's and don'ts had a lot to do with hipster culture because it was sort of like, imagine mods started out, and there was a.
That was me, by the way.
Oh really?
Yeah. Sorry to say.
I'm big on. I love mods.
Yeah, I was a mod in the early '80s, and then
Great.
I realized, kind of like you with punk rock, I was like. And then I found out what it was actually about. I was like, wait, you guys are just into like scooters and parkas. There's nothing else here.
Yeah.
Goodbye. I love the Jam, but other than that, we have nothing.
Well, that's what social justice warriors are. It's fashion. And so many people try to intellectualize it. And I go, stop. It's the mods versus the rockers on Brighton Beach.
Kind of. Yeah.
It's just
tribalism.
It's just scooter boys and bikers.
Yeah.
It's leather pants versus skinny jeans. That's it. It's tribalism, exactly.
Yeah.
As we started, other stores started showing up, and other people started making that their headquarters, and then employees wanted to live closer to work, and the next thing you know, we started seeding this thing. And obviously, it's naive to say I created this. There's obviously momentum there, but like Paul Weller with the mods, Paul Weller didn't create mods, but he was at the right place at the right time, and he managed to sort of ride that hubris.
He accelerated the hell out of it.
Yeah.
He's the reason I became a mod. Was Paul Weller?
Really?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I love the Jam. Still do. But,
they're great. Did you ever
band
hear the story about Sid Vicious and Paul Weller?
No.
So Sid, never mind the bollocks, had exploded.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be like late '79, and he's at a pub, and he has a bodyguard. Sid Vicious does. And he's like, the way you do Sid Vicious is you exhale. So he's like, "There's Paul Weller. I'm going to show him what's up." And his bodyguard goes, "What are you doing, Sid? Don't muck about. Just let it go. Let it go." He goes, "No fucking way." He was talking shit about us. I'm going to make him pay. And so he goes over to Paul Weller and he goes, "Oi, Paul, I'm about to knock you out." And Paul Weller just goes,
Wow.
Paul Weller grew up in a boxing gym.
Did he?
Yes, his father was a boxing coach.
That explains the Lonsdale brand he was always wearing. I didn't know that.
He's working class.
Oh my God, no wonder I love him.
His whole thing is like, "I know that we don't got no money, but what we're going to do is look presentable. So put on your Fred Perry, do up all the buttons, get a nice suit, and wear a parker when you're on your scooter so you don't get residue on your suit. Cover up, mates." So he looked like a Ponce, but he was a fucking murderer. He'd been boxing since he was an infant.
I didn't know that.
So he just turns Sid to sand.
Wow.
And then they get a mop and a broom, and they mop up Sid, and they bring him back to his fucking bodyguard, who was turned around, and he goes, "I told you not to muck about. I was just in the loo for 2 minutes." And he goes, why'd you do that anyway? And he goes, "Well, he says we stole Holiday in the Sun from In the City." And the bouncer goes, "You did." Because when you think about it, Holiday in the Sun is and that's In the City.
Oh my God, I never thought about that. Yeah, I worshipped them. I love the Jam. And
great band.
Speaking of black culture, right? Because that's what they did. It was maximum R&B, they called it.
Yeah, they love Northern Soul.
Yeah, all those. Those. I've seen like video of like Northern English dancing. These dances that we have, like the soul music. It's amazing.
Yeah,
they look like it's like fucking Detroit in the 1940s.
That's my kind of immigrant. The Yardies.
There you go.
When they came to Britain, the Jamaicans, they assimilated, and now you got blacks in the English Defence League. They're like, "I don't like people coming in here messing with our Union Jack."
Right.
Sikhs are like this. They're good assimilators. Indians are good assimilators. Muslims don't assimilate. They want to start a new thing.
Here they do.
Called Sharia.
Here they do. Come on.
18 to 20.
In America?
25% of 18 to 25-year-old Muslims in America think suicide bombing is sometimes or often justified.
I cannot fact check that right now.
Well, it's not unusual for all Muslims everywhere.
I mean, who knows? I mean,
in Pakistan, it's probably 70%.
I mean, the standard story, whether it's true or not, right, is that in America they tend to be more assimilated than in Europe. That if you go to Dearborn,
true, but we're seeing a pattern now where immigrants' children are more radical than their parents, like the Orlando shooting, like Reza Aslan.
Yeah.
He's talking about, I came here and I felt unusual because I was the only Iranian. First of all, you're welcome for us getting you out of that shithole in 1979. Secondly, you're looking at the picture and his dad's got mutton chops and bell bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
His dad was American, and he's sitting there, Mr. Muslim Pants, or the Sarnev brothers.
Right.
And you know whose fault it is? These Marxist professors.
How so?
Because these Muslim kids sit in school all day and get told how evil America is and how it's satanic and we're responsible for everything bad and we had all these slaves and we cheated and we're horrible. And then they go back, say the Sarnevs, for example, they go back to wherever they're from, Georgia, Chechnya, one of those white Russian Muslim places. Let's say Chechnya.
That sounds right, yeah.
Chechnya or Georgia. Mm-hmm. And their uncles say America is evil, probably because they're jealous. Their brothers get to have like a Trans Am and listen to Led Zeppelin. America is evil. And they go, yeah, maybe America is evil. Next thing you know, they're blowing up joggers.
Okay, so blowback theory, I'm not going to have the argument with you, but do you give it any credence that they have any beef at all with America?
No, I do not. Hello? No, I do not. Do you ever see the sketch Half Wits on SCTV? Uh-huh. There's this one woman, Blanche, who the question was articles of clothing found in the bedroom, and she's like, a coat hanger, Alex? Now, your people on the podcast can't see, but she sort of looms in on the mic because she's so sure of herself. Right. A coat hanger, Alex? No, that's not an article of clothing, Blanche, but yes, that's how I feel right now. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
In Indonesia last week, there was a little boy at a Muslim school who was beaten to death with a rubber hose for misbehaving.
I believe you.
You got to talk to Robert Spencer about this. He has
Robert or Richard?
Robert.
Okay.
Not Richard. Poor Robert Spencer. He's just poisoned, by the way, in Reykjavik by liberal activists. But yeah, the Philippines. In China, there was just a Muslim man knifing 42 people. The book is a violent book. They have a problem with inbreeding. Those are not good combinations. Okay. So outside of any American influence, throwing gays off buildings was not my foreign policy.
Yeah, I think you're completely right about all these descriptions of what goes on there, and I would never want to live in one of those countries.
Not even Malaysia.
But no, I'm just saying, and I'm not going to have a fight with you about this, but the history of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, nothing. You got nothing there. There's nothing.
I think it's the best thing that ever happened to them.
Okay.
I think that we tend to see the world through our eyes, but Muslims appreciate a good ass kicking. And I think that the wall in Israel, for example, off Jerusalem, I think that the Palestinians see that and they go, "This is a real man." I don't know why I'm doing a Russian accent.
I don't either.
Hello, I am Muslim man from Palestine.
Well, there's some who sound like that. All right. Okay, fine. I mean,
they like a beating.
Yeah. So how do you reconcile that with anarchism?
Good question. I mean, it's problematic. I'm an isolationist. But right now, we have a war going on. There's a culture war in America, war on free speech. There's a global war on Christians and the West. And Islam, the Muslim religion, Islamic culture, has gone off the deep end. And it needs discipline. Now, one of the things I like about Trump is I don't want to be winning hearts and minds. I want to be blowing up hearts and minds. So go over there. Or as some of my Wervet friends, turn it to glass. That's what they keep saying. You know what they mean? Yeah, I love that expression.
The sand becomes glass.
Yeah, turn it to glass. But yeah, just bomb the shit out of it. Keep the despots. We were wrong to get rid of Saddam. Keep Assad. Keep the despots. They're the only ones that control those fucking animals. And they are animals.
Okay, so
if you fuck boys,
and that would actually be effective.
You're an animal.
You think you would actually eliminate jihad by killing all of them, or killing?
Well, not all of them, but yeah,
a lot of
flexing some serious mother of all bombs, and then getting out.
You do think there would be less hatred of the United States after you turn them to glass?
Correct.
Why is that?
You're putting your brain in their heads.
Okay.
They're not rational. I remember David Cross said that after 9/11. He goes, I think that they bombed America because of our foreign policy. Osama bin Laden said exactly that. And I'm like, since when are we listening to Osama bin Laden? Hey, Osama, got any other tips on how to budget my mortgage? Hey, Osama, what goes best with fish, red or white?
All right. Fine.
Look all over the world. Look at Pakistan. Look at the attacks on mosques in Pakistan because an imam said the wrong thing. Muslims are killing Muslims right now. Right now in fucking Saudi Arabia, where they're doing exactly what they're told, women are getting caned for having part of their bangs appearing out of their burqa, or a little bit of purple sock showing.
Speaking of caning, a little tangent here, but I thought it was fascinating. Last night I was in a debate with Heather McDonald.
What?
Yeah, about criminal justice. Last
Wait,
night.
the one I ate alive? No.
You ate Heather McDonald alive?
No, it can't be the right one. What was that? I debated this feminist who had no idea what she was talking about, and it was just
No, she's
cruel.
not a feminist. This is a conservative. She's the conservative leading intellectual on criminal justice.
Yes.
The War on Cops
Yes.
book. That's her. I had a debate with her last night.
Great.
She came out and advocated publicly in this debate on camera for caning in the United States. And I thought she was kidding, but she doesn't joke at all ever about anything. So no, she was really serious.
Wow.
She thinks they have it right in who does it? Singapore.
Singapore,
right?
yeah. For chewing gum.
Yeah, all kinds of things. So
I'll tell you what, though.
there's Sharia law for you coming to America.
We definitely shouldn't bring back caning, and no, Clive and Bundy slavery wasn't better. But charter schools in Harlem are like military schools. And I had this Asian buddy who sent his kids there. He was from somewhere weird, too. Like maybe it was Indonesia. But he goes, I had to take them out. They have dads. They have discipline in their lives. It's designed for people without dads and discipline. And these kids, they do push-ups, they run laps, they have to stand facing the wall if they say something wrong, they have to wear the uniform every day. I've talked to this guy who runs a charter school up there, and he said one time this girl didn't come to school. I said, where the fuck is she? He said she couldn't afford to clean her uniform. So he goes over there, grabs her uniform with the dirty laundry, they go to the laundromat, she puts it on, she's off to school. I mean, it's military school.
Oh, yeah.
And the students are thriving. And you know what the New York Times said? They go, despite charter schools in Harlem thriving, they are not a fix-all solution. And the article's beef, when you read it, is not everyone has access to these schools. So your problem with them, New York Times, is that there's not enough of them? Okay.
Well, the New York
Thanks
Times
for the tip.
is not always consistent.
I love charter schools in the New York Times because, again, it's the blacks as pets.
Right.
And their pets are supposed to be socialists who love public hand-me-downs, freebies.
Right.
Charter schools are the free market.
Well, they want blacks to want us to take care of them.
Yes.
Unlike what Crass said.
Right.
Yeah.
And charter schools are their little pets going out and foraging in
doing their own
getting
thing.
their own food.
Yeah. It's funny, this like the military discipline in these charter schools, I have conflicted feelings about it, and sort of the military in general, because I come from this fucked up family, right? My mother left when I was 5, by the way, and
Ooh, that's harsh.
Yeah, it was really harsh, and raised by my dad most of the time. And
I think that happened to Tucker Carlson too.
Did it really?
Yeah.
And he's also from the Bay Area, I believe. Yeah.
So hippies. She was a hippie.
It was a thing, kinda, a little bit more so. Yeah, I mean, she was like, and it was partly justified by feminism. Yeah, I mean, that was.
I find that
this
fascinating.
Was 1970.
Because go up to a bear and grab one of her cubs and see how well you do. Like, how are we sub-bear?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, so I let her. She paid from me. I made her.
You
pay.
beat the shit out of her?
Verbally for a long, long time. Oh yeah, big time.
I don't know if that really counts.
No, it doesn't. Well, I don't know what it counts for, but anyway.
Did you make her cry like a little bitch?
No. God damn it! I guess I should go back to screaming at her in the phone.
Should
in the middle
rape
of the
her.
night. What's that?
You should rape her.
Oh, thanks. That's good. Yeah, I'll let her know.
I think
Can
that's
you-
the law,
Can
actually.
you call my mom right now? Oh, yeah.
You said mum. What
Did
is
I?
that? Yeah.
Oh, as I've been hanging around you too long.
Yeah.
No. So like, it was just like basically chaotic and no form, and I was left to wander the streets and shit, which was kind of good in some ways. But like, I started dreaming about having a family when I was like 14
Yeah.
and having children. And so like, and I was never on a sports team like you. I never had anything like that. It's fucking Berkeley in the 70s. There was just no form at all. You weren't supposed to structure children's lives at all.
Right.
And now I took up boxing and martial arts in about 8 years ago, and that I was like loved being coached and like how they would yell at me and make me do things, and like if I didn't do the 10 push-ups, they would scream at me and make me do this and make me do that.
That
And
sounds sexy.
It was all totally structured, and I loved it. And I also have known people from families sort of like mine who went into the military and came out much better off. I have to say, even though I'm as anti-war and anti-military as anybody you're going to meet, I get it. Like, I do think that for some people, that works. It's better for them.
Yeah. I've been talking to a lot of ex-cons recently, and it's funny, and it might be a white thing, because I'm thinking mostly about white people. But every time I go, that's fucked up, man. 6 years for dealing coke. Or I just had a guy on my show who did 2 years for insider trading. And every time I talk to these guys, they go, well, you know what? I'm better off. It was good. I was going down the wrong path, and it was good for me. And I think, is this something that like Americans do or white people do where they go, I'm going to make the most of it? Or are these things kind of good for you? I mean, I hate prison.
Yeah,
I want to.
me too.
I think 5% of the people deserve to be there for the most part.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Take drugs away.
Right.
Take fake domestics away.
There you go.
And I think 5% of the people in prison are incompatible with society.
Yeah.
The rest, we could easily liberate.
I think you're roughly right. I mean, to me, war and prison are the things I hate the most. Like prison, I've always had a thing about prison. It's just,
man in a cage.
Yeah, but it's true. We actually have evidence of this. I think studies have been done or whatever. But like of ex-cons, a large percentage or a significant percentage, I should say, want to go back.
It's very frustrating because it doesn't help my narrative.
No, mine either. Right. No, it's just, I don't know what to do with that. Right. I really don't. Because
it doesn't fit in my box.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what to do with that. But, well, what we can say is, I don't care if you want to go back. We don't want to fund it for you. Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
go build one in your basement.
Yeah. So, but it's true. I think it's because a lot of those guys come from families, like mine, but worse, right? Just where there's just zero structure.
Yeah. People like structure.
So freedom, I'm all about freedom. You're all about freedom, but you're also about structure,
Well,
Clearly.
I think there's an easy difference here. When your MMA coach is screaming at you, you have the right to walk out at any moment.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. Right.
And in prison, when the CEO is yelling at you, you have to listen to him or suffer the consequences.
Yeah, of course, right.
Now, the beauty of these charter schools in Harlem, yes, they are brutal in areas where there's no dads.
But it's only for a few years.
But you have a charter school in rural Wisconsin. They're not doing pull-ups. It adapts to the market.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what education is so desperately needed for the past 100 years.
Yeah.
Is teachers that can get fired. I said that on Mark Maron's podcast. I said, he goes, well, all those tropes, the teachers don't get paid enough. They only make $60 an hour. And, it's our children and we need more money for education. And then they use the word, it's systemic. Mm-hmm. You know that word? Mm-hmm. Yes. The problems are systemic. There's not just one magic fix. And I go, yes, there is. It's called firing teachers. The second a teacher can get fired, as is the case in charter schools, where they make less than public school teachers, all of a sudden there's an incentive there. You start getting better teachers. New York is rife with stories of cheating, too. There's all these principals are just ripping up tests and lying on forms. It's a communist mess.
I've talked on every single episode about my hatred of school and public schools in particular, so I'm not going to go on too far about it, but do you know about the private schools in India and Africa, sub-Saharan Africa? There's thousands of them all over India and sub-Saharan Africa, the poorest places on earth. And there have been numerous books written on this. They are thriving. And there's a large percentage of those kids who are the poorest children on earth who are getting, apparently, better education than the public schools are giving them for very, very cheap. Now, they pay the teachers very low wages. This is true. That's the downside. But because they're all competing, I assume, they're forced to give good education, and it's working.
The free market is better everywhere. I think John Stossel offered a $1,000 reward for any example you can give of the free market not being better than the government.
Yeah.
Now, cops are the ones that keeps coming up, but even that's getting privatized. You look at these shishi neighborhoods where they buy their own cops, or even here around the corner, the people who clean up the garbage aren't the city. They're called like the 35th Street Cleanup Project, and it's local businesses donating to make this area look nicer because the government's doing such a shitty job.
You're going to love this. I have an apartment in Little Tokyo in Los Angeles, downtown. And the local businesses, all Japanese owned, hire people to clean the streets and all the windows and all the walls once a month. Every square inch of that neighborhood is spotless.
Do they do security too?
Yes. Yeah. And it's all privately financed by just the local business. These are like shop owners. These are not like big wealthy people.
Look, I understand that government is a plague and old people are going to like it if they've been brainwashed their whole lives, but it's just so frustrating to see young people, college students, want more regulation. Like you look at these punk rockers Occupy Wall Street, and they want to regulate they want the government involved. They want to vote for Bernie so you can get in there and give more rules. You're supposed to say, we want to ride our machines without being hassled by the man, and we want to get loaded.
I know.
But they're like, we want to ride our machines, assuming that the man has checked them for safety ordinances and if they're good for the environment.
That might be the most depressing thing about what's been going on college campuses that I've seen. It's they always are appealing for the president or the trustees or some authority figure to help them, to save them, to fix their lives, to make things better. It's like, wait a minute, we used to be anti-authority.
Even calling the cops, even at the New Orleans thing when they were moving the statues, even my side, I'm going to say, because you don't seem to, I don't know where you stand on this, but there's one of the anarchists throws a brick, and the Confederate guy goes, hey, police, you can do something, as someone threw a brick. Like it's like when you have a calculator and you're using it for 347 times 1042, and then the next thing you know, you catch yourself going 10 times 10. Like it's become this crutch they use for everything. I need to call the cops. Our buddy Sal was just in Boston fighting for free speech. He offers this Antifa Pepsi, as is the meme, and she goes to whack it. I don't know what gender this person was. It goes to whack it out of his hand, so he shoves it on the ground and it falls on its ass. And he's going to jail now. He's looking at a year in prison if it's a misdemeanor. Why was that brought to the authorities? Yeah. It fell on its bum. Yeah. We're fine. We're good. We don't need you.
When we were in college, we wanted to get away. We wanted to go do our own thing, get away and drink beer and smoke weed and fuck in the dorm rooms by ourselves.
It could be illegals, man. It could be illegal Mexicans mowing lawns, cleaning pools. These kids stay in their parents' basement. They don't develop an economic libido. They don't develop self-worth. They don't want to move out till they're 26. My dad told me I could move out when I turned 18. On my birthday, when I turned 18, I had boxes filling the garage, ready to rock. These kids, how important is it to you to have blueberries? I get to open the Sub-Zero fridge whenever I want. Fresh fruit. I'll buy you fruit. I'll get you a thing of raspberries. Aren't they like $1.20? Fucking mac and cheese whenever I want.
So the illegal immigrants are providing the economic base for these authority-worshipping millennials.
Yes.
Got it.
Yep. I think there's it's a complex concept, but, when you want to start a business and you're 22, you remember what would happen when you were cleaning pools and there was a customer who wouldn't pay. And you remember the trick was to go there every day at 9 a.m. and just bug them so much they eventually paid. Same with debt collection with your suppliers. You keep nagging them and you call really early. So they're like, I got to get this guy out of my fucking hair and just pay him off. These kids don't have that. And they have this mentality where, help me, you got to do something for me. I remember there was a thing in the news a few years ago about these interns who didn't like the dress code at this corporation they were working at. So they went on strike. And the corporation went, bye.
Right.
You don't seem to understand. Couldn't be more replaceable. In fact, I'm doing you a favor. Interns are free school. I'm showing you how my company works. You're welcome.
Yeah. All right, man. I got to ask you about this because I've heard you talk about it a lot, and it's something that plagues me, and I'm just very curious.
Peyronie's disease?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, it's just calcium deposits in your penis.
Like completely transparent. You just see right through my
head.
I
knew it was coming. It's been the elephant in the room.
God.
And I'm uncircumcised, so it does look like an elephant's trunk.
Oh, wow. I heard about that.
A huge, like a giant elephant.
It goes without
the
saying.
Bull of the tribe.
Of course.
The alpha bull, I believe it's called.
Well, this is sort of what
definitely not one of the babies.
This is what I was going to ask you about. Marriage. Like, how do you...
You want to marry me?
Yeah, well, kind of.
I'm taken, dude.
I know.
So I guess this is a short answer.
No, you have this thing about the family, which is not very punk rock, not very anarchist, which is fine. It really is. I'm just really curious.
I'm not taking that for granted.
No, but also, isn't your wife kind of liberal?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's a woman.
So every woman I've ever been with has been a liberal.
Yeah, well, that's the go-to when you're not really interested.
Yeah. And it sucks. It's hard all the time. How does that work for you? Because for us, it's like it's a constant sort of subterranean tension that sometimes bubbles to the surface and can even...
November was a very rocky month.
Election night was really bad.
Yeah,
really bad.
I believe I threw a chair out the window. I did not enjoy November.
How's it?
Because she didn't vote the same as me, so she's canceling my vote. And I said to her, I mean, I'm going to get mad if I get into this, but I said to her, a husband and wife should always vote the same. So
really,
it's like moving to a new city. The husband shouldn't just go, we're moving to Seattle, bye. They sit down and he goes, look, I got a job offer in Seattle. I think we should do it. And then they both go, okay, let's do it. So if you want to vote for Hillary, at least watch Dinesh D'Souza's Hillary's America with me. Or I go, at least sit with me for 30 minutes and let me explain to you why she's worse.
Fair enough. Okay.
And she's like, no, I'm not going to let you fucking brainwash me. And I'm like, well, now that's what pisses me off. is that you're not willing to hear me out. I'm not saying I'm going to slap you Sharia law style and make you vote. I'm saying it's a major decision that we should work out together. And if that takes 4 days of discussion, then let's put aside 4 days.
First of all, what were your parents' politics?
My parents are pretty right-wing, but they're atheists, and they're really mad that I'm Catholic. So Thanksgiving is just them yelling at me for saying grace. But
Working class, right-wing.
everyone in
atheists.
Scotland is an atheist
Yeah.
because they're anti-English. So whatever the English do, they do the opposite. It's like Canada and America. So the English like Christmas. Christmas in Scotland is like, it's a 1 hour
But
affair.
right-wing in what way?
But New Year's Eve is a big deal. Oh, they hate Muslims. They hate immigration.
Okay.
They love
Even
Trump.
though they are immigrants, did they deal with that contradiction? Or
I don't see it as a contradiction at all. They hate what's become of immigration.
they hate those immigrants.
Well, the immigration is a fucking shit show.
Okay.
I don't hate it in 1836, but, you know, around when I came, we stopped emphasizing assimilation. Now, when I became a Canadian citizen, I think in 78, I had to stand under a oil painting of the Queen and put my hand over my heart. They don't do that anymore. They don't. In fact, they discourage assimilation. We had the mayor of London say that immigrants don't have to assimilate. Now, everywhere, like go to Pakistan and try not to assimilate.
Let me tell you a story.
Okay.
So Monday night this week, I interviewed a Syrian refugee and found out in the research for this episode that every refugee who comes into this country now, and for many, many years, has to go through a refugee settlement agency who are paid by the federal government to resettle and assimilate every single one of them, which includes classes, day-long classes on how Americans behave, what they think, how they treat their wives, how they treat their husbands, the work ethic, the family ethic, not being too sexual in public, all the rest of it, including English and all that stuff. So I agree with you, at least in this country, like immigrants generally don't have to go through that, although...
Look at their accents.
There's pressure. There's
They've been here
cultural
for
pressure.
30 years, and they're like, Jushoga Bima. What? Jushoga Bima? Are you trying to say you should have got a minivan? Because if
Yes, they
I lived in your country for 30 years, I would be a fucking poet
Yeah, but their kids,
who wrote...
but their kids assimilate. The second generation always...
They did.
Eh,
They did.
they don't.
Now they're
Really?
getting more radical.
I don't know about that. Anyway, all right. So you come by your anti-immigrant politics honestly, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Look, when I came to New York, for example, I brought...
Meaning from your parents. I mean, you did carry that down.
Yes.
Yes.
My mother taught African immigrants, Somalian immigrants her whole life.
Oh, really?
Or at least for many, many years. She was a teacher. She taught business school to immigrants to help them assimilate. And, she learned a lot about Muslim culture. They would do weird shit, too. Like, during the anniversary of the Six-Day War, they would leave dingbats on their screens because she was teaching them computers of, like, a skull, a Star of David, and then 2 buildings, like the Twin Towers. But she got to know them, and she went, this culture's fucked. Remember she said once, she goes, here, that's... Scottish people do a thing where they introduce the nouns to everything first. They're like, see Mamo, see fish. Mamo hates fish. So you go, see they unmeet Muslims, see the Somalis, see their burqas. How is it no white cotton? You know, if it's meant to be empowering and it's good for them, why is it black polyester in a country that's 160 degrees? Can you not choose like flowing gauze or something that would be a little more comfortable?
Yeah, see, that's Scottish rationalist imperialism right
Yes.
there. Yeah, just so you know.
God, can you imagine wearing a burqa in the Middle East? I mean, imagine wearing a burqa in July in New York City. You just want to kill yourself.
Well, but how about the Hasidim in Williamsburg?
Oh,
right?
I can't look at them.
I think
I get so
you
hot.
got
I need to like go shove an ice cube up
in
my
the
ass.
summer. I would watch them and be like, "You guys can't wait for December, can you? Just admit it. Just admit it."
I've been around Hasids my entire life. The 3 biggest populations are Montreal, upstate New York, and Williamsburg, and that's been where I've lived.
Right.
And I don't know what the fuck they are thinking with those fur hats.
They're making it work though.
in July.
I mean, it's tight in that community. It's still going.
Yeah, it's tight to the point of inbred.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, it's working. You know what I
I
mean?
don't know if inbreeding is working.
I don't want to be a part of it, but hey.
Well, I
doing what
will
they want.
say, I got this from Jared Taylor, actually, the white supremacist. He said, you have to hand it to them, that a culture can live amidst all this decadence
Yeah.
and remain completely unchanged for What, 100 years?
He's got a point, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
It's impressive. I mean, I don't want to live that way, but
it is impressive. And it is anarchist, anti-libertarianism, but I kind of appreciate that about Quebec. You know, they're Nazis over there.
Yeah, right.
They literally have language police,
right,
who will go, and if your sign says Tom's shoes, slightly bigger than chaussures de Tom, you get a fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're punished. Mm-hmm. And they send your English kids to French schools. So they're making your kid, by the way, he's counting in French, your English kid, when he's counting money. He's dreaming in French. You got into his head. You brainwashed. You changed his thoughts. Mm-hmm. You changed the language of his thoughts. And I hate that. It's authoritarianism. But it's also preserve their culture. You know that Quebecois accent? Like, bon ben là, tu sais la grande chose. It's an accent that goes back 400 years in France. So there are parts of like rural Normandy where you'll climb a mountain and see some wizened old 90-year-old, and she'll sound like she's from Ryan-Noranda in northern Quebec, because they've sort of pickled themselves in that. They came here 400 years ago. They pickled themselves in that 400-year accent.
Didn't know that.
It is impressive. I wish we could do that with American culture.
It's impressive, but I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to live in that.
I don't want to live in that, but I also want America to be more arrogant, more chauvinist.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know you.
More proud. I wish Israel was more proud of themselves.
Yeah. All right. So wait, back to you. So your parents agreed on politics.
Yeah.
Between them.
Yes.
Yes. You and your wife do not.
That is correct. She says I've changed. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
She says I've changed, and I'm like, I haven't changed. I don't have views. And then it gets insulting, where she's like, oh, so you're going to be all weird now that a Sikh is running the fucking cafeteria. And I'm like, so you think I hate Sikhs? What the fuck are you saying, bitch? Yeah.
Wow.
It
goes
Getting
there?
sassy.
Does it go there?
Oh, I would probably call her a bitch once a year.
Yeah, once a year?
I would save that. That's a doozy.
Dude, that's a
cunt maybe once every 10 years.
I called my wife a cunt once, and that was the turning point.
Yeah, that's the end, right?
That was the end. Beginning. No. Girlfriend, current? No, never. Nothing like that. Never.
Oh, I think a woman should be slapped once every 5 years.
Oh, my goodness. Speaking of Sharia law.
I also think it's okay to hit a woman if she hits you 12 times.
So I have been hit by a woman, by a girlfriend, multiple times.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
And guess who ended up in handcuffs? Me.
You.
Yes, that's how it works.
Wow.
Yeah,
you poor sweet angel.
I know. I kicked a cardboard box in my backyard. We were in an argument, a fight, and I just did that, and some neighbor heard it and called the cops immediately and reported domestic violence. The cops, 4 LAPD showed up.
Oh, vey.
4 LAPD
Was it a wood box?
Nope, cardboard box. 4 cops show up at my door, say, sir, we need to come into your house. I said, what? Where's your warrant? They said, we don't need a warrant. I said, of course you need a warrant. And so I was belligerent with them, and they handcuffed me and took me into the front yard and searched my whole house, found my girlfriend, talked to her. She said nothing happened.
Right.
And then they saw all the books that I had, like bookshelves.
How to beat your wife.
And they said, wow, you have a lot of books. I said, yeah, I'm a professor. And they said, oh, and then they're, oh, okay, I'm sorry, sir. And then they took the handcuffs off.
You guys don't have the balls
to
beat your wife.
Then I found out that actually they were legally obligated to do that. That in California, I think in other states, the police have been ordered to search the premises without a warrant so check it out. If you want the cops to invade someone's house, all you have to do is call the cops and say, I think there's domestic violence at 321 Main Street.
A domestic is like in Indiana Jones, where he releases that giant boulder and it starts rolling. Yeah. She can deny it. Like Anthony Cumia, my boss, he got in a fight with his girlfriend. She periscopes it and she says, he's hitting me. She was lying. And her stepmother sees the periscope, calls the police. Now the boulder's rolling. She can change her mind. She doesn't even need to press charges. They don't care what she has to say. It's going. The charge is going. He has to go to court.
Yep.
He has to do anger management. No more guns, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
That's the society we
based
live
on
in.
accusation alone.
It's a matriarchy. And so I'm not saying necessarily that I want to change that, but I do. But even before we get to that, how about some gratitude? You know, that we live in this culture that is so fucking sensitive about rape and domestic abuse. And instead, the feminists spin it and they pretend it's grab the pussy day. And it's just a lie.
Yeah.
I mean, we are, if a woman's in a bad mood, she can ruin your life.
I found out. That's true. So like it's a constant negotiation for me, like with the politics thing, because, you know, obviously my politics are not only not liberal, but often anti-liberal. And it's like sandpaper for them. And I get that, you know. Like they love NPR and I hate NPR.
Ugh.
And so what do you do?
Well, just embrace sexism and just go, I don't care what your political views are because you're not sophisticated politically. So it's like your views on soccer or your views on the Mets.
So meaning just ignore it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we avoid the subject.
Okay.
And she knows I'm right deep down. I mean, I've known her since 2001.
You think so?
Yes.
Really? All right. I'm going to have to go talk to her.
Yeah, please do.
She knows that you're right deep down.
Yeah, she knows immigration is a mess. She's American Indian. They know how dangerous immigration can be. As far as racism goes, I'm not racist, so that's an easy one. And then as far as Trump goes, she tries to bring up stuff, and I'll go, this is why that's bullshit. The Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. He uses it as a CIA mouthpiece because the CIA is mad at him because he shat on their entire agency because they suck.
What was election night like? What was she saying? What did she think was going to happen?
Oh, she felt sorry for me before the election. She was like, yeah, you think you're going to win. And she would pat me on the top of the head. Being jokey, but it's still. And then it happened, and I wasn't with her. We had a huge party in Tribeca. We all wore Hawaiian shirts. Guys were carrying me in the air. We were pouring beer on each other. I mean, it was better than sex. And then after that, I was just mad that she didn't vote for Hillary.
But did she think mass pogroms were about to
No, she's
happen?
not that like that.
Okay.
She's not like that. But she did say to me once, aren't you a little scared? I'm like, of what? Tony Soprano almost won. Now we have some rookie who likes America. That's the deal.
Well,
that's what America was built on.
The reason that I'm happy so far with the Trump presidency is that he's accomplished almost nothing. That he's done nothing, practically. Certainly less than any previous president so far.
I don't know. I've seen
that's
some
the best
pretty
kind of president,
extensive lists. Yeah,
from an anarchist point of view.
From
right?
an anarchist, I've always said the greatest president is you get a Japanese guy in there. You only teach him the word no in English. He doesn't know any other English words. And he just sits there and they go, President Yakamoko, I was thinking we could expand this solar energy program to go to schools where all schools would have a garden on the roof with solar panels. He's like, no. And he just says no all day because the government can't do anything. Oh, you hate roads?
Yeah.
How many times have you heard that one?
Right.
You should see the roads going to the burbs.
Oh, my God.
On my motorbike, I'm shitting my pants.
Have you been in L.A.
Because it's like
recently?
Iraq.
Have you been in L.A. in the last few months?
No.
It's like Mexico, the roads. It's just because there was big rain this year.
Oh, right.
It's just completely caved in, and there's just potholes and gullies, and you can't drive more than 15 miles an hour in downtown L.A. because you're going to run into a ditch. I mean, it's unbelievable.
They can't do anything.
I know. Yeah, man.
And you go to the DMV, everyone there has Down syndrome. And by the way, they all have an accent. Why does everyone have an accent in America? Every guy delivers.
The DMVs I've been to is all black women.
Oh, you're lucky.
Who are mad at you.
I'd kill for that.
They're all mad at you.
Here they're all Chinese or Sikhs, or I like Sikhs, but you know what I mean. No teens, never teens. Can't have any employed teenagers. And I say to these liberals and these lefties, I go, you know those assholes who hate you at the DMV and resent you for being there?
Yeah.
That's the White House.
Right.
They're just a little more savvy.
I know, it's
but
true.
they have the same shitty attitude. And you want to imbue all this authority on them to run your life. Why do you trust them to do anything? I like your concept, Michelle Obama. Healthier lunches. Obesity is killing 500,000 people a year. That's a great idea. But the government can't carry out ideas. And that's exactly what happened. It was disgusting schlop that kids didn't want to eat, so they just threw in the garbage. The dumpsters were overflowing with her healthy food. Trump kills the program, and she goes, Trump doesn't like kids? And you go, can you get out of the fucking rhetoric clouds for 2 seconds and put your 2 feet on the ground?
Right.
Can you, as she said to Oprah, be better, be better, be better? Do you remember that?
Yep.
Oprah asked her what her advice is for Father's Day. I just tell men out there, be better. And then Oprah goes, be better. And then they say, be better, be better, be better, be better, like 50 times.
Yeah. Well, what were you expecting from Oprah?
This is a fucking bitch, by the way.
Who? Oprah?
Michelle Obama.
Oh, or your wife.
Who's talking to a woman, Oprah, who was raped by every Tom, Dick, and Harry because she didn't have a dad around. Michelle Obama's dad is as handicapped as you if you'd been beaten with a hammer for a fortnight.
I don't know anything about him.
He's a raging gimp. He's got those canes on his arm that attached up
I've never
here.
seen pictures of him. I don't know anything about him.
Worst hand.
They
Like, it
hid
probably
him.
takes him an hour to walk to the bathroom.
Huh.
Every day of his life, he got up, he went to work for the subway busted his ass, stuck by his wife. Not that anyone else wanted him, and paid for her education. She should have a tattoo of him on her back with his little crutches.
Wow.
And every speech she gives on Father's Day should be, "Thank God my father stuck around. We have a 75% abandonment rate with dads in Black America. Be more like my dad."
Yeah.
And no, her speech was all about, when you're playing golf and everyone looks like you, be better. Be better. Like giving CEOs shit for being too white on the golf course.
Yeah.
Nice priorities.
The paternalism of that shit was incredible.
Oh,
I know
better.
how you should eat. Let me tell you how to eat.
Yeah. And
exercise.
They start with the truth, like there is an obesity problem,
Sure.
and then from there they make this gigantic leap, this parkour leap between the two World Trade Centers, thinking they're not going to fall down the hole, and they go, ergo, we will provide healthy lunches and people will slim down.
And it worked because everybody's thin now.
Thanks, Michelle. I never tried celery before.
There you go. It's worked, man. So you know that I'm divorced, and
I do.
You're not a big fan of that, and you think I should have stayed with my wife. Is that correct? Without knowing
99% of problems are reparable.
without knowing anything about my wife, without having met her, barely knowing me, or anything about that relationship except what I've told you, you think I should have stayed with her?
Correct.
Okay, forever.
Yep.
Okay.
And Louis C.K.'s
Why?
his friends say, you don't know, Gavin, his wife was a crazy bitch. And I'm like, why did he come in her? Like, his kids were 4 when he got divorced. And all these people getting divorced when they have a baby. And I'm like, if this is the psychotic lunatic bitch that you say she is, why did you knock her up? Why did you ejaculate in her? She wasn't a stranger.
Because we make mistakes, man.
Well, it's reparable.
And you know what Eugene Genovese said about the slaves, who, by the way, didn't have this idea about the nuclear family? The community raised the children for various reasons. He said they were smarter than white people. They knew that they didn't have to live with their mistakes for the rest of their lives.
Oh, God, I hate that. Penny Rimbaud from Crass. I still summer with him occasionally, and he says his brother lives in Africa, and he goes, they're actually smarter than us, They don't have a family structure. Meanwhile, he has no kids and doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
But,
The man, woman, husband, wife structure is the perfect scenario for a child because that's what makes us who we are. I'll give you an example. I was at the airport, and this kid had shot himself.
Nice.
I was fucking him in the ass, and he got a distended anus.
You had to go there.
Someone had to call the cops on me, and that was my last day before trial. No. He had a shart, as we are wont to do.
I see.
I think every man shits himself once a year.
Never heard of
I
it.
just had my annual one about a week ago.
Okay.
Anyway, his dad is in there, and I can hear the kid crying, and he's like, what the fuck is the matter with you? God damn it. We're at the airport. You can't control your bowels.
Oh, that was me. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm at the point now, I'm looking at their shoes, and I'm like, do I have to intervene? This kid's getting abused. He just had a shart, dude. And he's going, God damn it. You can hear him, take the underwear off and throw him in the toilet. He has to clean the shit off the kid's legs, and the kid's crying. He's probably 7 or 8, the age where you should have control over your bowels. And then I watch their shoes, and it doesn't go to the level where I should intervene. And then I see them go back to the gate, and I can tell by the shoes who it is. And the little boy goes up to his mom, and the dad's mad, and he grabs his phone, and he just crosses his legs and looks away from the kid and checks his tweets. And the mom sits there and holds him and hugs him. And they were both right. Don't shit your pants, okay? If you can feel if it's air or diarrhea, so hold your bowels in. If there's any question, sit on a toilet. So the dad was right to be mad. The mom was right too. Look, accidents happen. I diarrheaed myself, okay? My underwear's in the toilet now. It's gone. Let's move forward. Fucking dad's freaking out. I need to be reminded that I'm loved. That's the way it is in our home. I'm the CO. I'm the warden. I walk up and down the halls with my nightstick.
Yeah.
I go into their bedrooms. I touch their reading lamps to see if it's warm. And if it is, I know you were sneaking
To stop them from reading.
Yeah, well, at 11 p.m.? That's way past your bedtime.
I read all of Roots under my covers with a flashlight.
Oh, really?
When I was in 6th grade.
I actually did a similar thing, but I acted out Roots where my cock was the slave, and I was beating it every night for misbehaving.
Yeah, historians have had a debate about that too. No,
Beating off?
yeah. So, where were we?
No, the way I think,
Nuclear
I don't know how
family.
many times with
It's
divorces.
exhausting, dude. Like, isn't it just crushing? You agree?
Being a dad?
Yeah, no, being in a nuclear family, like with two kids.
You
three
know,
kids.
you
have
know how
three
to do
kids?
it?
How?
Stop beating off. Stop porn.
Porn. That's the
Porn.
problem.
Porn is a huge problem. In fact, I think I read
Oh
it
my
leads
God.
to 500,000 divorces?
What? Oh my.
No, that's
Gavin,
not right?
I liked you until now. What are you talking about?
Tens of thousands of
Come
divorces
on.
at least.
Porn causes divorce.
Porn causes
No.
divorce.
Porn saves marriages, just
Oh
like
my
prostitution
God.
saves
That's
marriages.
malarkey. You see, when you have no other recourse and she's mad at you, there's an incentive to fix the problem and get back in her pants. When you have porn, and by the way, I don't want anything outlawed. I'm not Mao.
I get you.
It's a bad habit. It's like heroin. And when you have all these women sitting in your computer waiting to blow you virtually, then you just go ahead, bitch, be mad. You go upstairs. There's no motive to fix the damage, and you drift apart slowly. Mm-hmm. You don't need each other anymore. Now, this doesn't apply to women. Women don't have libido problems, which is why Muslims are so retarded to genitally mutilate them. Dude, if anything, you should be adding a clit. If I started a religion, I would have to. I'd make sure they added at least 3 clits.
How does your wife? I gotta
One
get
on
back
the
to your
bottom
wife.
and one on the asshole.
I got to get back to your wife, so to speak. I'm curious about like living in Williamsburg with a liberal wife, and she had friends, I assume. And like,
you
how
know
did
your
they
problem?
talk about this?
I think you're from Berkeley, so when
Yeah.
you hear liberal wife, you imagine like the round glasses and
Okay.
and that's politics doesn't come up.
Okay.
It came up at the election.
No, but I mean, I'm thinking about like your
She's
broader,
pro-choice.
not so much about your wife, but about your broader social circle. Just living in that neighborhood. My God.
Oh,
like,
it's weird.
But like, how did people must have thought you were a bad person, right?
Well, my wife, she'll
her
meet a new
friends
friend,
must have thought that,
and
right?
she'll say, she'll say, it's going well with my new friend. She doesn't know who you are yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
and-
like being gay in the 50s.
Totally.
I'm gay in the 50s.
Absolutely. So must have been horrible, or you just didn't care?
Must have been. It is.
Yeah.
Yesterday at my son's baseball game, this guy comes up to me with his phone. He goes, "So looks like Trump asked Comey to drop the Flynn thing. Matter of days before we lose him." And he just says that openly to all the other dads, and all the other dads are like, "Yeah, well, that's getting shut down." Right. And what I do now is I just say I'm the most Trump person in America, just to get it out of the way. It's sort of like if you were gay, you'd go, "I suck cocks every waking moment," just to like clear the board, you know. Mm-hmm. And then they go, "Oh, well, what? Ugh."
Trump supporters are queer.
Yeah, we got a fucking queer over here. Don't go near my kids with that Trump penis.
I mean it. I mean it. Yeah, you're queers.
It
right?
really is. Look, dude, if we wear MAGA hats in New York, we all get kicked out of the bar.
Yeah, totally.
And then they call us pieces of shit. And we went into a bar in Harlem just for fun, wearing MAGA hats.
What? Yeah. How's that? How'd that go?
They kicked us out, and he just kept repeating, "Be careful with that. Be careful with that."
Yeah, so
and
they're
we're like,
actually
"It's America. We won. What's your problem?" "Yo, be careful with that. We don't play that around here. Be careful with that." He said, "Be careful with that" so many times, I had to say, "Please stop saying be careful with that. It's driving me insane." And then we left.
Provocative, I would say. You.
Is that provocative?
I'd say
That's
so.
a good example. I live in New York. There's a bar in New York. I'm wearing the hat for the president. I don't think that's egregious. I shouldn't have to hide from that bar in New York. It's like Kyle Chapman, based Stickman. They go, I heard from my guys, they go, "Fucking man, he's going too far. He was picking fights with these skaters just before the Berkeley thing, and he knocked one out. He's just antagonizing people." And I go, "Yeah, let me call him." So I call him, and he goes, "No, dude, I was doing a promo for the thing, the march. I'm in a very liberal area. Yeah, so what? I'm allowed to walk around this country. I can go to Dearborn, Michigan." And he was in Berkeley, and he did a promo, and these skaters came up to him and started attacking him because they recognized him, and he beat the shit out of them because he's a ninja. They were swinging at him, and he just went poop and knocked them out.
Yeah.
He spent 10 years in prison, this guy, by the way.
Wow.
So was he being provocative? Sort of, but it shouldn't be provocative to support the president.
I hear you.
It shouldn't be provocative to want to say a speech.
Sure.
My speech that these people want to kill me for at DePaul in Chicago, it's going to have, if you were to read it transcribed, I'll pay you $1,000 for everything that's factually incorrect. Like, there's going to be no Jews are lizard people, boys are sexy, the Holocaust never happened, blacks need to go back to Africa. No one talks like that.
What's amazing,
they're fighting a mythical beast.
It's amazing to me. Yeah, I was going to say, it's amazing to me that they consider you a threat. How are you?
My kids look like chinks.
Even if
I got three little Indian babies.
Even if you are a fascist, how are you a threat? I mean,
that's another thing. Yeah,
right. I mean,
well, they go, you're recruiting for your white supremacist.
You got your Proud Boys,
and you go, okay,
you got your
army is going to do what now?
Right.
Take over the government like Cuba? We're going to become the new Fidel and Che?
Right.
And then what do? We kill gays and gypsies?
Even the real fascist, Richard Spencer. I love that am I right about this? That he wants all the racists to leave the United States or have their own place, right? He doesn't want to do anything to blacks here. He just wants to take all the racists and go elsewhere. I love that.
Yes, he also said, which you should have the right to do. Blacks can do that.
Well,
in fact, Professor Griff from Public Enemy, he was on Talib Stark's show the other day, and he goes, "We want 8 to 10 states just for us."
Right.
So that's exactly what Richard Spencer wants.
But if you want to get rid of...
Professor Griff wouldn't have people threatening his mother as Richard Spencer does. He gets people threatening his mother.
If you want to get rid of the anti-racist, if you want to get rid of racists, Richard Spencer is your best friend, isn't he? He wants to leave, doesn't he?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, so he doesn't want to take over and impose segregation, as far as I understand. He wants to go away. So anyway,
everything Richard Spencer says is rational, except for one thing. And by the way, earlier I said you should hit a woman slap a woman once a year. That was a joke. But because the left is so desperate for bad guys that they sift through these podcasts and try to find a quote and then rip it out of context.
Yep.
But the Richard Spencer, I talked to him. He's rational. His speeches don't include anything that incendiary. So you read them and you go, "Yep." But I've had him on my show a few times. We're talking, and then he'll go, "I go, do you think there's a future for non-whites in America?" And he goes, "Absolutely not."
Oh, well, maybe I was wrong.
And then I go, "Well, that's a new one."
Okay. I guess I was wrong about him then.
Well, no. Those two aren't mutually exclusive. Maybe he means we start our little white enclave, and then it grows like Israel's borders, and then eventually they get, I don't know, demographic out. I don't know.
What do you want?
Total and utter freedom.
But you want to keep people out of the country.
For now, until we can fix this mess.
Mm-hmm.
Until we can reestablish norms. See, the problem with libertarianism is they assume that everyone else is playing fair. But they don't. And Milton Friedman said we should have open borders until it starts taxing the social system. Mm-hmm. It's taxing the social system. Mm-hmm. Don't believe the lies about, the immigrants' illegal space so much in tax, it's insane. They're a huge boon to our economy. No, they cost us trillions.
Right. So, you want trans people to be able to be trans and all that shit?
Of course, but, and this is why I love the First Amendment and free speech so much, I want people to know that you're normalizing abnormal behavior.
Okay.
And what you do is you get people who are sort of considering it to go over to the dark side, and now they cut their dick off and they go, what the fuck have I done? Their suicide rate post-operation is worse than Jews in 1943 in Germany.
Why not just take no position at all on it?
Because
either way.
They're giving kids hormone blockers.
Oh, well, okay. Sure.
That's child abuse.
Yeah, okay, fine. But I mean,
Here's a better example.
Okay.
You know these people who think they were born in the wrong body and they want to be paralyzed?
Oh, yes,
or they want to be they want to have a stub for a leg?
Cut off their arm or whatever,
right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to murder those people or ship them somewhere or put them in jail, but I don't want to normalize that because I don't want people chopping off their limbs, because you're going to get someone who's sort of on the fence. The next thing you know, they chop off their limb. And you talk to real transsexuals who have actually done the operation, and they tend to agree with me. They tend to go, this is a very heavy move. This is like moving to China and ripping up your passport. Mm-hmm. So you better fucking love China. You better know Mandarin, and you better not find Cantonese annoying, which it is.
The trans Chinese are coming. That's the next movement.
Yeah, it's so, and basically it comes down to, this has got nothing to do with legislation or anything. It comes down to dishonesty. These people normalizing. Look, your kid is a woman. Your little boy is a girl. It's called a fag. Okay? Let him put on some short shorts and dance around the West Village for a little while when he's 18, and then ask him if he wants to cut his dick off. After he has it sucked 300 times a day by all his fucking Latino boyfriends, now tell me he's still a woman. No, your son's a homo. Okay? He's not a girl.
So the theme of this podcast is things you're not supposed to say.
I think I've been pretty politically correct,
I think I got
actually.
a pretty good guest here. I think you did all right, man.
I don't think I did any violations. I've been very careful.
Yeah. No, it's straight down the line. Everyone will love this. In fact, I think Terry Gross is going to have you on next.
Well, I'm not kidding, though. Like, even what I just said right there, your son's a fag. I'm obviously using a swear word, but the prudent way to say that is totally rational. I think a lot of young people mistake gender dysphoria for just homosexuality.
So the argument is normal, I suppose you would say, but the language is deliberately provocative.
And
all right, man.
I'm Scottish. We're crass. We're drunk.
You're like the Scots-Irish in the woods, though. You're not like our dads. You're not like the bad boys.
Nah, they're not. They're not that different.
The Puritans.
You know, upstate New York, if you go back far enough, you'll see a lot of the names for things were like Shit Mountain, Cunt Creek. It was just drunken Scots.
We are an earthy people, aren't we?
Fucking around. Yeah, we're very rude. And according to Thomas Sowell, we created rap by making blacks rude, too.
There you go. Well, thanks, Gavin. I appreciate this, and I appreciate you. Well, why do I even have to thank you for saying what you mean?
Yeah.
You always do.
I appreciate you. Appreciate you. That's a Southern thing to say, right?
And do you still think I'm gay?
No, not anymore.
Okay. Now I'm disappointed.
You couldn't keep it up when I was trying to blow you.
You're not the first person to say that. Thanks, man.
Cheers.
This was the Unregistered podcast. If you like what you heard today and think this episode was worth $1 or $2 or $10, please visit thaddeusrussell.com/support, where you'll be able to personally help in a real way to keep this show going. You can also help by going to thaddeusrussell.com/Amazon whenever you want to make a purchase on Amazon. Thanks for listening.